I'm not wasting any time tonight doing some bullshit intro that you've heard a million times. Well, I am going to do an intro, but not like the dumb, let's vamp and like, Mike, what are you doing? You know, Mike's not even here. If you're watching this, you know Mike's not here. We have a very special episode for you. And off the top, I will just very clearly say, we are going to spoil the absolute shit out of Sea of Stars, which just came out. So if you don't want us to spoil that entire game for you, you need to turn this off. You need to come back to this when you finish the game. It's also worth mentioning, we will be talking at points about the Messenger. So if you haven't played the Messenger and maybe want to avoid any potential Messenger spoilers, that warning is there, but this is going to be really about Sea of Stars. So again, if you have not played or finished, if you haven't finished Sea of Stars, if you're playing it and don't care about the whole story being spoiled for you, great, stick around. You're in for a fucking ride, I guess. But welcome, everyone, to the Path Control Podcast, a show where a couple of best friends talk about the latest in video games and nerd culture. Sometimes we have guests, and tonight is one of those nights. We have an amazing guest panel joining me. We've been foaming at the mouth waiting to talk about Sea of Stars. At least I have. I mean,
we've already been talking quite a bit.
I know. But now we can do it. Now people have to listen. People have to listen to me say Garl's name 72 times within the next hour. Probably more, to be honest. Joining us for the first time, as always, I'm your host, Brenden Groom, blah, 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 all those things. Joining us for the first time, hopefully not the last time, is the craft beer enjoyer, John Carson.
Hello.
You are many more things. Yeah, you are many more things than that. But
thank you.
We were talking about beer before this.
We need to ease people into me.
Yeah.
Which is not how I should phrase that. But
I was about to say, like, that sounds very wrong.
Since it's your first time, John, give them the pitch. Why should people know who John is? I know who John is. They should know who you are.
Well, I'm a friend of Brenden. I think that's either good or bad.
It
depends on where you're coming from. I am a former associate editor of Game Informer, and I am a current, I guess, news editor of the Indie Informer. I guess my role isn't completely defined, but that's kind of what I'm going with for now. So
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love to see it. Also joining us, recurring guest. You may have seen them, a dozen or so times on this show before. One, Cameron Hawkins. Cam, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. I got a dog I got to monitor, but outside of that, I'm not gonna go into the in-depths of that. But I just gotta keep an eye on people who watch the show. They know about Astra. She just needs to be monitored tonight. That's all I'm gonna say, and we'll go. And but I'm outside of that. I'm doing good.
Hell yeah.
I'm ready to talk about this game.
Love to see it. And rounding us out. Yeah, Lucas, you've been on the show before, right? I didn't misspeak before we started recording. You've been on the show before.
I think just once before.
Was it for a spoilercast? Did we do like a?
It was Soul Hackers.
Soul Hackers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're locking in the fucking Spoilercast spots.
No kidding.
That was a good episode. That was what us, Cam, you were there too, right? And Michael Hyam.
I think so.
That sounds right.
It was a good show. How are you?
Snagged a physical copy of that the other day.
I did too, because it's cheap, and I'm like, you know what?
Very cheap.
This is
Best Buy had it for what, like
I think
$7 or something.
Oh wow, if it was that cheap,
I don't know.
I bought it at like 15, I think, or maybe 20.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's still cheap.
Yes, yeah. For an Atlas RPG that will probably at some point skyrocket in price. Yeah, I'll scoop a physical copy. Why not? I liked it. It was fine. We're not talking about Soul Hackers tonight, but it was fine. It was fine.
Like a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, it wasn't Sea of Stars. We'll say that it wasn't Sea of Stars. But we got a lovely cast tonight. I'm very excited. I'll quickly do some housekeeping in case you're tuning into this. Which again, if you're tuning into this and don't have an interest in Sea of Stars, I don't know why you're listening to this episode. You really like the Path Controller podcast for some reason, I guess. But obviously, you should be expecting the PTC Movie Club as this numbered episode 384, and that is not the case. It's going to be pushed a week because of this, and also because I'll be away this weekend. So you can look forward to us talking about La La Land next weekend. I know.
Overrated movie.
Sure.
Overrated movie.
Sure. Those weren't the words I was expecting coming out of your mouth. But.
we do a monthly 1-episode movie episode,
Sure.
and it's a rotational pick. And Mike, for whatever reason, his list of movies he wants to watch chose that one. It came up on the rotation. So
talk about a sea of stars. Am I
right? Damn. So who would be the Garl in La La Land? Who saves Jazz?
No one. No one.
He is the
John
Jazz
Legend.
himself.
John Legend.
Okay.
He is in that movie.
Garl is Jazz. He improvises so much.
Garl is kind of jazzy. So before we just get into all the nonsense, what off the top, how is everyone feeling about Sea of Stars? Like, what's your overall feeling on this wonderful game? 3 out of the 4 of us have written reviews out, so please, if you want to hear and read, or not hear, but if you want to read some delicious words from both John, Lucas, and myself, respectively, Lucas, yours is on
Game Crate.
Game Crate. Okay, I was gonna say game something else. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna say the word because I don't know the exact word. So definitely check that out. And then John's is over on Indie Informer.
Yes.
And then mine, of course, is you know where the fuck it is. And if you don't, I also don't care. So there's that. So off the top, how is everyone feeling about Sea of Stars?
I guess I'll start. I think it's really good. I have a deep reference for like Super Nintendo RPGs, and that's where I first started playing RPGs. I think Chrono Trigger and Earthbound were my first 2 RPGs.
Oh wow. That's actually that is a good. I'm curious what everyone's first RPGs were, if you know.
Oh god.
So, oh yeah.
Oh, you want us to answer that first?
Yeah. I mean, just toss it in.
Pokemon.
Not red though. Can't Johto?
No, Pokemon Blue.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
My first RPG was Pokemon Red.
I think my first one was Pokemon Red.
Hell yeah.
But I feel like I played Final Fantasy Legend like on a friend's Game Boy for a decent chunk of time, but I think Pokemon was the first one that like I had and played through.
Growing up, we had Ys 3 on Super Nintendo, which is an RPG, right?
Kinda, yeah.
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 Well, regardless, that might
if people call
technically
Zelda an RPG, I think Ys can slide in.
So I mean that.
I mean, I don't agree. I don't agree with that statement.
All right,
so
well, then we can recant it. I mean, I'm not trying to claim Ys 3 is.
I'm
not trying to push my glasses and go. Actually, my first RPG is Ys 3.
Ys 3 is an RPG. Like I would say, like you level up and like you know all that stuff. Like,
First RPG was Dragon Slayer on the PC.
Oh shit! Exactly. I didn't get to experience some of my favorite games of all time until I was older and able to go get those games. Super Mario RPG. Earthbound. I wouldn't put Earthbound in my top. I don't have the same reference. I think it's a great game, but I'm not like a Super Mario RPG is my jam.
Earthbound's the cartridge that sits on my desk at all times.
Mine's on my shelf. If I pull it right now, it's gonna knock over stuff. But I also have an Earthbound cartridge.
I have Chrono Trigger cartridge, but I don't have Earthbound.
Damn, jealous.
I'm jealous. Like you can pretty easily get a Chrono Trigger cartridge. Like Earthbound's like $500.
Because I'm a fucking
I could reach
sicko.
mine.
I have a Super Famicom and I have a Super NES card. I got Mario RPG.
I got Earthbound at Best Buy on clearance for like $8.
That's
hell yeah,
bonkers.
And told all my friends about it, and they all got copies. So we all had like the big boxes and strategy guides and all that. Like.
It's like $1,000 now.
Sick flex.
Like pre-owned. Like
more than that at this point.
My guide is shredded.
Yeah.
I played
especially if you have the guide and the box too. That's like
if those scratch and sniff cards still work. Damn.
This guy by itself is like $300-400 now.
Yeah.
Just
that's what I was saying. Like it's so expensive.
I bought it for $70 like 10 years ago.
I don't want RPG. I don't want RPG people to come after me. I like Earthbound. I just like I don't want to claim it as like super important to me as far as like my growing up as an RPG person.
I mean, I agree. Like I like Earthbound too, but I wouldn't.
If I had played it when I was younger, I would have that attachment. I just didn't. I played Pokemon and then I played Mario RPG, and that was my trajectory.
I don't want to sound controversial, but like that's like probably not even in my like top 15 favorite JRPGs or RPGs.
Well, that's because 1 through 15 for you is Trails in the Sky. So
I mean,
okay. That's actually
Kingdom Hearts in there too. It's
I mean, like even if I had to pick one game per series, I still think Earthbound would not be on that list.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. So back to
Earthbound's so great though.
Back to Sea of Stars.
Well, I guess just quickly, Earthbound for me was played it with friends when I lived in Milwaukee, and then I moved to Minnesota, and then bonded with friends over it there. So like it's one of those games that helped me transition to a new place and find new friends, and which is really cool. Anyways, Sea of Stars.
No, that's a great story. I love that.
It's heavily inspired by those games, by Mario RPG, by Chrono Trigger. Like a lot of that DNA is in there, in every battle, in the visuals, in team up or like combo attacks and all that,
and like literally in the music with the composer doing some guest tracks.
And a lot of games try to capture that magic of those games, and I mean, I'm sure Lucas will talk about this more too, because he had a lot of that in the review, talking about games that do that, and whether they succeed or not, or whether it's played out or not. But I find that this game hits more than it misses with a lot of the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And kind of uses those stepping stones to like build its own thing. Like it feels like its own game eventually.
Yeah.
And like builds its own world and feels like its own adventure. And it's like now that I'm currently playing through The Messenger, like a lot of that is very like referential, like, oh hey, this text box isn't big enough to tell you about all this stuff. Like Sea of Stars isn't that like tongue in cheek. It's very earnest in everything that it does. And I don't know. It's a lot of different pieces that come together to make the sum is greater than its parts, I think. And now I'm getting cliched by saying that kind of stuff, but it really is one of those experiences where I thought it was kind of boring at first. I didn't like the music. The combat wasn't hitting for me, and then eventually it just all grew and grew and grew. And then I think it's when the story really kicks it up a notch to like big reveals and all of that I really started to get into it more. When you got more characters in your party and you had more combo attacks, you had more opportunities to like solve locks and really feel like you're competent in combat, rather than struggling all the time and feeling like you're not prepared for anything that's coming your way.
Yeah.
It just started feeling like a much, much better game. And by the end, I was really, really into it. So
hell yeah.
Yeah. This game's great.
What about you, Cam?
Yeah, overall, I think this game is great. I think it started off. I liked how it started off. I like how it kind of laid the groundwork of the story. I do think it takes a long time for the story to really get going. Similar to what Carson said. But I think the music. Granted, I haven't played like Final Fantasy 16 yet, but I think that this is the best music I've heard in a game this year by far. I think that its combat it's great, like in the sense of making its own systems that are still inspired by games that came before it, while still doing its own thing. But I do wish that there was more growth and customization with those skills and combos and abilities as the game progressed. I think I think the characters are great, and there's definitely a point in the game where I feel like it's kind of similar. Like the game I always like think of and compare it to is Undertale. It's like you think like it's this one game that kind of perceives itself as, and then like there's a certain point where it happens, and then it like there's a lot of like hindsight of like everything that's happened up to this point, and it really feels like that there has been like bigger things happening that the party wasn't really like aware of in a way that was compelling. But also after that point ends, I feel like there was a level of wasted potential with some of the things that was introduced at the end of the story, without going in deep into the spoilers yet. Just general thoughts. And I do think, and this is something that we've kind of discussed at length off this podcast, the way that they handle like the ending of this game is a little bit jarring. Like I wish it was kind of done a different way, but I also like don't really know how it could have been done differently in a way that makes sense with how the like how they structured everything. But I mean, overall, I think this is a fantastic game. I think it should be in the Game of the Year conversation. I think that, you know, obviously it's a very competitive year with Zelda and Baldur's Gate 3, possibly Starfield coming out soon. That, you know, unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to get that level of recognition that it should, but I think it was fantastic. I think it's like, I think it is definitely like the definition of a must play, like JRPG inspired like title. And yeah, I really liked it.
Hell yeah. What about you, Lucas?
Yeah, like from a reviewing standpoint, I feel like I was kind of on the lower end, but the lower end is like an 8 out of 10, which I think says a lot.
Yeah.
It's a really, I think, well put together game. Like it has a level of like not just polish, but like attention to detail that I don't think you see super often in games like this. Like all the environments are really interesting and fun to run around in. I think some of my like biggest problems with it sit around like the sort of like a plot, if you will, like the big thing that's happening. I think is just kind of shallow, I guess, especially compared to like how interesting I think the characters are.
Yeah.
And so, but as kind of like the mythology and stuff is kind of doled out, I just kind of felt myself like just not very satisfied by that. But like the characters and how they interact and how they kind of intersect with like the themes of the story, I think is all really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the more that I think about this game and the more time has passed since I've finished it and since I've, you know, written review, whatever, I feel like my opinions continue to not change. Like I still am very high on this game. I think it's like phenomenal. My expectations were very high because I like Sabotage Studio. I like The Messenger. And I mean, knowing that what that team is capable of, and knowing what they were trying to make, and especially because it was seemingly from, you know, early stuff and in demo and, you know, all these things very like Mario RPG inspired. I was like, this has got to hit for me, or it's gonna not hit for me.
Yeah.
And like those aspects that are like the way that I looked at this game was like I adored the world and the characters. Plot stuff aside, like Garl is one of those characters that I'm gonna be thinking about for a long time. Because the more, and when we get into spoiler stuff, I'll kind of say more of why. But it's funny to me when you think about like the A plot of, you got this threat out there, you got Rashawn and April doing their thing, Fleshmancer, and you have you know, this legacy of Solstice warriors being born to try to stop this and all this stuff, whatever. And that stuff's all going on. But then you have this whole other plot with Garl. And like, if you look at the game through Garl's lens, as like what Garl's story in the game is and like what Garl's adventure is, then it becomes something to me that's like, and I don't think that the A plot is generic or whatever, but like it becomes less of like big villain, you know, superheroes, blah blah blah, and it's like regular character who just loves his fucking friends.
Yeah.
Who is inserting himself in places he's not supposed to be. And
100%.
how that continues to change the story. Because like this on like a meta side is like, you know, it's the same story that's been playing out for a millennia in that world of, you know, the two main, the Rashawn and the Fleshmancer are having like their chess game in the sky, and all of the things living in the world are playing their part, and that's gonna just be the same thing that continues to repeat itself until Garl, and that just gets me so fucking excited. Like Garl is such a weird character because at the beginning of the game I didn't trust Garl. I thought Garl was gonna, like, first hour of the game, your kids flashback, then you're at, you know, the academy. What I don't even remember what the school's called.
Well, like your kids.
Zenith Academy.
Yeah.
There's a flashback. Garl is hanging out with the two Solstice kids. Gets his eye poked out.
That was wild.
Yeah,
that was wild. I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
And then basically, is it Morhaime?
Yeah,
Moraine.
Yeah,
Moraine. He's just like, all right, I'm gonna heal you up enough so it only hurts now, but you'll be fine. But you need to get the fuck out of here for like 12 years. And you cannot come back.
And like everything about that is okay. That's perfect revenge villain. That's a perfect easy setup to be a bad character or a traitor character down the line. So like the very beginning of the game, I'm like, I don't trust Garl. I think when we finally meet Garl again, he's gonna fucking, you know, have a chip on his shoulder. He's not gonna like us, whatever it may be. And it's like, no, this motherfucker sat on a platform for 2 days to bring you cookies that he made. Like, this is your guy. Like, that is
cookies, though.
And I feel like I don't always like love that character, especially in an RPG. Like, I like Ryuji, and I keep making like comparisons between like Ryuji from Persona 5 and Garl. And I like Ryuji, but I don't necessarily, like, I'm not like, I love Ryuji. Like, I'm not going nuts for Ryuji. I know people who do, like, shout out friend of the show, Michael Hyam loves Ryuji, and his dissertation he gave me before about why he loves Ryuji, made me fucking cry. Ryuji's a great character, but like, something about Garl, I don't know. It's fucking Garl, man.
I think it's the way that all the other characters treat Garl. Like, the people who are in power do tell him, like, hey, this isn't your place. Like, when we say the word, you need to step aside. And he's always accepting of that. Like, he understands that he is he is a dude with a shield or with like a pot lid.
Yeah.
He doesn't have magic powers like his friends.
Yeah.
But he's always supportive. He's always positive. Yeah, he does like butt in and like try to make things happen, and it usually does. But I feel like there's not a lot of negative feedback from other characters to really just like reinforce like, man, this dude's real annoying.
Yeah.
Like why does he keep doing this? It's like, oh hey, he shouldn't be here. And if he does get involved, it's like his own fault, and he understands that.
Yeah.
He takes responsibility for all the risks that he's taking. He just wants to support his friends as best as he can.
Yeah.
And it's just that overwhelming positivity. And it's just it's written in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
He never feels overly intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
And when he is like kind of towing that line, it works out for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helps him like keep like on my good side.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into like deeper in the story when he really turns the tables on the entire like fate of the world. But yeah, he's a habitual line stepper, and always makes it out. Always makes it out unscathed every time.
Somehow.
Always unscathed.
I will like echo a lot of what you said, but and also say like I think what is a strength of Garl is that he does sort of always kind of feel real. Like it feels like it's not just like this specific character being written this way. It kind of just feels like this is how this like it feels very genuine. It doesn't feel like it's just being written for the story's sake. It feels like Garl would exist there, would be this way, and it's just believable to me.
Do you guys have friends like that who will just like talk to people that you don't think that they should probably talk to just because you think that they'd be bugging them or whatever? Like they're just super outgoing, and for some reason like it always just kind of works out for them.
I don't have friends, so that's
okay.
Bold of you to assume.
If you ever see Ben Hansen in the wild, he's exactly like that.
Okay.
Just like super outgoing. He will talk to anyone. If he sees like some game developer that he's like interested in talking to, he'll just be like, I'm just gonna go say hi, and then like end up just having like this big long conversation with them.
Yeah.
Like that's the riz that Garl has.
I think I think if you don't have a friend like Garl or know someone like Garl, I feel like you should like. I feel like everyone should want to have a Garl in their life. Like, who wouldn't want to have that? You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe you don't want him around all the time. Maybe you don't want him in your party. But like, yeah, there's a Garl in my town. You know, I love Garl. This is gonna quickly turn into a Garl podcast if someone doesn't pivot me off of Garl.
Someone drink every time we say Garl.
Oh, jeez.
No, well, let's go with so like the game does a really interesting. It has a really interesting focus on everyone who isn't like the Solstice Warriors, and like making sure that it's emphasized that they don't have, crazy superpowers, but are still like finding unique ways to contribute, right?
Yeah.
So like the boost system, I think, is a big part of that. And then you have like each other character has their own kind of unique contribution, even though they can't do like the big damage or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big like sort of recurring theme that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would go as far as to say like I don't dislike Zale and Valir, but I think they're probably like narratively maybe my like least, well, maybe not narratively, but like as far as like personality wise, they're my least favorite of the
100%. Yeah,
they don't have personalities.
Yeah,
they don't. Yeah, they don't. They're
I could not tell you what Zale or Valir would like or wouldn't like, other than we want to defeat this evil.
Yeah, which I think is kind of, again, like purposefully part of the story writing here, the storytelling, because like at some point in the game you'll get, I forget exactly when it is. It might be like when the first time you confront two of the acolytes. I forget where on the map that is, but whenever you get the flashback of Erlina and Brugave's kind of like, as I think it's also while Zale and Valir are young, but you're getting conversations that they're having, and like part of that is of course to like flesh out why they're doing what they're doing, like why they're gonna turn on, Headmaster Moraine, because they feel like they're caught in an endless loop of this is the same violence that like continues to happen. There's always this talk about Solstice Warriors being able to ascend. It's never happened before. It's not going to happen now, and feeling like they're sort of just like feeling like their characters written in a story, like they are stuck. They have a predetermined path that this is what it's going to be, and they're looking at these two kids who are also going to be that. And kind of for what it's worth, like they are that because they are being chosen by Rashawn, the Great Eagle, and dropped off in Mooncradle, and that is their life. Their life is, you are going to grow up to hopefully stop this from continuing to happen. And it never happens, and they're just caught in this loop. So like there is a sort of like sympathy play with Erlina and Brugaves in that moment of like, this is why they're doing it, whether you agree with them or feel bad for them or don't, like, but that's why they're doing that. And I feel like that's and I feel like that's kind of like another commentary on like that is basically what Zale and Valir are in the story. It's like they were just chosen as children to be this thing. They go to this academy, they train, they don't really have anything outside of that. And I think that's also probably why, like in the beginning, Headmaster Moraine is like trying to separate Garl from them, because he's like, your goal is to not have friends. Your goal is to like, your life is not supposed to be comfortable in Mooncradle. Your life is supposed to be doing what we tell you to do. You go do it.
You're supposed to learn kung fu and weaving.
And weaving.
Learn the mystical power of the loom.
That is one of the things I always wanted more out of, was like there was the emphasis on like sewing, and then I don't really think much else happens with this.
They don't touch that again.
Which is like, it's fine. But like there's like a part of me that's cool with like not getting like every piece of this game has to have like lore and story attached to it. But I mean, that can also be a negative if there's too much of it. I think it's relatively balanced personally with that type of stuff. But I think they're like, by design, I think Zale and Valir are supposed, like I interpret them as like they're supposed to be not bland characters, but they're like they were just going to continue to repeat this thing. Erlina and Brugaves are the ones that are also like breaking the cycle. So because they're breaking the cycle, Garl is breaking the cycle on the other side. That allows the space for Sarai to get involved. That allows them to create Beast. That allows them to, knock on the door and eventually get Rashawn to join them. I think that like they're supposed to be like, here's run of the mill, we're on the treadmill. This is what's going to happen. Everything else is what is affecting that, which I think that's why it makes everything else so much more interesting, especially party wise.
I think like there's also an element of like they're sort of positioned initially to be almost these like I don't know how else to put it, Naruto like characters. They're like kind of impatient little kids, and they're getting whipped into shape.
Yeah.
You kind of think it's headed in that direction, and then like the big twist happens, and it's like, okay, now they're back into like the Superman role. But then as things go on, like more and more of this like structure just crumbles away. And so it's kind of like they're trying to do the right thing while more and more and more of like their tools are just disappearing. And it's sort of like, because like free will versus predetermined, it's part of the thing. So it's almost like we're doing what we're supposed to do, but we're finding like a different new way to do it and do it better than everything before.
Well, they're also, those two are just moving in that straight line the best that they can. Their whole goal is to defeat the Fleshmancer, or the Fleshmancer's forces that are left. And every step of the way, there are things that are just like shifting their course. Like they're still going in that straight line towards it, but like there are people who are just like just pushing them to the side a little bit, just to change that course enough to keep on that track. So like Garl's doing it. Rashawn does it when Garl knocks on the door and decides like it's my time to step in. It's been long enough, and I'm gonna do a little bit to see if this changes the fate of the world.
Yeah. What did everyone think of the door moment? Because that's obviously a pivotal point in like the game itself, like gameplay wise, because you'll gain Rashawn eventually. It's obviously a big pivotal moment, like story wise, because up until that point, Rashawn is like sort of the narrator of the game.
Yeah.
And then it turns out like, oh no, because I always saw him as like, this is a person that's maybe recounting what's happening. Like it seemed like they were maybe ahead in time reading out of a book, but now it seemed more like maybe he is writing the book actively, and the rest of the books in the room were previous times that he's tried to do this with other Solstice warriors. So I like that scene. Like I think Lucas might not be a fan, or at least Lucas wanted some more sicko shit from that moment. But that scene like fucking floored me. I was like, I was not expecting like knock on the door, and it's like, I guess we'll find out, and fucking slams the book and opens the door, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me right now. It
was definitely a cool twist on the like narrator thing, because so many games have that narrator character that is just always there, but then it's like you barge into the room and suddenly like he's an active part of the story. It was a neat twist.
Yeah.
You were saying, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, like, I just kind of want to go back on the Garl knocking thing. Like, I didn't really take it as it's like my time to step in. I just think it was a sense of like all these Solstice warriors that have made it to the door, and part of it is like this is something that I have to just kind of what's the phrase? Oh man, I can't think of the phrase, but like. The idea of like, oh, things are different because Garl's there because he knocked on the door is a little bit like of a stretch, like that none of these other Solstice warriors in the past thought about knocking on the door. But like it is still a cool, like it from a symbolic way, it is a like I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay with them doing something that is really simple to signify like, oh, it's different this time because it's not just the Solstice warriors.
Yeah,
it's Garl. Garl's there too.
I think it I think that's still kind of open to interpretation. Like I don't think it's necessarily that no one ever thought to knock on the door, because I'm sure people previously have tried to open the door in different ways. But I think it's just a matter of, for some reason, literally as knock on the door, Navi just burst to the fucking door down. That was very bizarre.
Join my party.
Basically, I mean, Navi, you're in the party. She's taking a shit. That's great. There's only one reason why she would come in here at this exact moment, and it's to take a shit. So, content. I think it's more of just like a mix of Rashawn felt like this was different this time, and the knock is just a cool way of doing that. I don't think it's because the knock.
Well, because like when he knocked on the door, Rashawn I mean, obviously you can only get so much emotion out of like these sprites, but like it looked like he was kind of confused. He was like, "Did someone just knock on my door?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that was the vibe I got off from when he just kind of like, you know, did the whole like peeking over the chair thing. It was like did someone just knock on my door? And so like to me, I think that was the case. Like, it was just like that Garl was there and was willing to be like, what if we just knock and see what happens?
I mean, Garl's the main character as far as I'm concerned.
Garl
like,
is the main character.
That's
like,
I mean, he's the heart of the game. Like, I mean, like, and that's the thing. Like, I think that if anyone walks away not thinking that Garl is like not the best character in this game.
Damn,
like
shots fired at Jesse Vitelli.
I just think like I'm just like, yo, did you play a different game than I did? Because I think that like if Garl I think Garl needed to be the best character in the game, or the narrative wouldn't have worked. Like I think that it is one of those situations where
100%. This
like
game,
the whole game was made around Garl.
Yeah, this game is a significantly different game if Garl is a different character.
Yeah. I don't think I would have. I mean, I was going to review this game anyways, but like if I was playing this casually, I don't think I would have continued as far as I did until if Garl wasn't there. Garl was the only I mean there's stuff with like Sarai and the pirates and whatnot, but
I love Sarai. The Sarai stuff was great. I just but we wouldn't get that without Garl, because Garl gets stabbed. He gets not stabbed. Well, he does get stabbed by her, but he gets taken by the necromancer.
Yeah,
and she stabs him to stop him from getting taken.
Yeah, because I agree with Carson. And I've already said this to you, outside of the podcast, Brenden, that if I wasn't playing this game to do this podcast, because with Garl, in the beginning, I thought during the flashback, I was like, oh, this kid's super irresponsible. This is the kind of kid I would hate to hang out with as a kid. He's just wanting to do stupid shit and just isn't thinking through any of his actions. And I think that, from that flashback to then, he learned a lot from that experience. And while he was still very, abrasive, he also was willing to recognize when he needed to not be in the way. And when to be in the way. And so I think that I think that when it came to but that was Garl was the main thing that would, and just the general minute to minute gameplay, there's such a variety of diverse locations and stuff like that as you're playing through this game, that that I kept on thinking to myself, man, the sense of adventure in this game just feels so real. And I feel at least for me, that is a big part of what makes a great JRPG type game. It's is the sense of adventure, using that sense of place to tell your story, to make the world feel realized. And and with this world, they were able to, they had kind of the freedom to do whatever they want. So they were able to go kind of balls to the wall, because there's a point where you're underwater and in an underwater town, and there's one where you're literally in a space. It's just the variety was so rich, and in ways that made sense for the story at large. And so, but I do think that there was definitely a point. I'm pretty sure it was maybe a session or two before I got to the door and things really started to kick off, where I was there was definitely a point where I thought I could step away from this game for a bit, play something else, and come back to it later. But then all of y'all were hyping it up. I mean, I still would have played it regardless, because I needed to. But all y'all were hyping it up, and I'm okay, I'm ready to get to this point. And it didn't disappoint. It didn't disappoint when it got to the really hype. You're on a roller coaster for an hour of this game consistently. But I still do think that there is, it is a very back heavy game, where you do have to definitely be hey, this game is, this game always has these good factors about them. But when it comes to the narrative, you kind of have to just wait it out until a certain point, and then the stuff that and then there will be the payoff, and then it just continues to get better. It does really go beat for beat for beat. Every location you go to, something significant happens. but I still but it is still a tall ask, especially in the year 2023 where there's so many games that for some people you're gonna say like, oh, you have to wait like 13 hours to get to this point.
I don't think it takes that long to get interesting, in my opinion.
I know. Yeah.
To get out of the... So there's there's those RPGs that you play that you're like, this is soul food for me. This is what I'm craving, and it's to like a destined hero going to fight evil, and you hit this town of mole people with this giant dragon wrapped around like this spire that they live on, and then you don't even like deal with the dragon thing at that point. And then you go to this port town and you see some pirates and they talk about this ghost ship, and then you just sail right past the ghost ship, and then you go into like this creepy town and try to solve the problems of this creepy town, and then shit starts to like hit the fan. But it's for the first like 10 hours or so, it's checking boxes of things that you typically see in an RPG, and then it starts to kind of go off in its own direction. So like I do get where Cam's coming from, where it's like it may not take 10 hours to get good, but it takes 10 hours for it to feel like it's stepping into its own.
Yeah, that's the better way of going about it.
And like I could see how that, would affect someone's opinion on the game. Like for me personally, and again, in retrospect, things could be different if they didn't, like, if that fucking dragon wrapped around the spire was never a thing other than just like a decoration on the overworld. Yeah. In retrospect, I'd be like, that was kind of a waste. Like, it was pointless. Like, it was like cool environmental thing, but like there's plenty of cool environmental things. Same thing with the Vespertine. Like, if the Vespertine was just a thing in the water that you never dealt with, or maybe you had a boss fight and that was it, and like, not to say that only a boss fight would not be cool, but like if things didn't turn out to get involved with all those types of things, I think again, different feeling on the game at the end, different game overall. But I guess for me personally, it was more of like there was so much around, and I was personally like, these things are going to come into play at some point. Like, there's no way that these things don't matter. Like, there's no way that this is not going to be a thing. Like, because it's even with the acolytes. I know Cam has some issues with the acolytes too. We talked off the air of like they're teased kind of early, and then you don't see them for a while, and it's like,
and they don't really do much.
Yeah, they also don't do much eventually. But I think like stuff like that could be a deterrent. Like, yeah, if you want a little bit quicker of a drip feed of like main overlapping, like overarching story, sure. I was fucking eating it up. I was fucking put it on the plate, baby.
They dropped it.
I think to the game's credit, I think it's paced really well.
I think so too.
Oh yeah, I think
just
so
in
too.
general.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So like, while that first 10 hours is a lot of table setting and familiar RPG stuff, like it doesn't really like waste any of that time.
No.
Like a lot of the areas are kind of small, and it
Yeah.
kind of pushes you forward a lot. And so there's not like some RPGs that start kind of generic will be like, take around on the world map. Maybe you'll be in the right direction, by luck. But this one's like, no, you're going to go here and go here and go here and go here. So I think that really helps in that
For sure.
respect.
Yeah.
Like,
also, there's like, oh, go ahead.
No, I just said like, I just want to say like, I think it was definitely smart of them to make to be like very straightforward in the different type of locations that were in the game. It's just like, hey, you have a level where you're fighting enemies, whether it be like a big kind of like boss, like you're gonna like end up fighting the boss, or if it's like a general like, hey, we're just going through the trail like type place, or it's a place to fish, or it's a town. It's only those three things, and I think that made it like that was a good idea for a game like this. Yeah, it made the pacing really good.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about like the way you move around. I was thinking about this when I was reviewing it, but I was like, a lot of this game is like Uncharted, where you're like going along a path, and then there's like stuff you interact with that kind of looks puzzly but isn't at all. It's like here's these like here's this like wall grappling section, and here's these jumps, and like all you're still really doing is like moving ahead.
Yeah.
And there's like no getting lost or chance to like fall down or whatever. But it's like something lizard brainy up here is like, oh, I'm doing different stuff. Yeah. Even though you're not really. And I think it helps.
It feels really good too.
Even like clambering up walls is something that you're not supposed to do in RPGs, especially ones that were on like Super Nintendo.
Exactly.
Like just going up to a wall and just like climbing up it. Usually you're like wandering around to try to find a staircase or some slope to go up.
Yeah, you're like pushing boxes around.
Yeah. I think what helps with all these things too, like again, it's like the game is gorgeous. Like I think the pixel art's phenomenal. The music is fantastic. And I personally, again, like Super Mario RPG Psycho, so like the combat was tailored for me, but I think the combat is really good. And like to kind of go off of, because I also, while I was writing my review, was kind of like, I didn't feel like there were a lot of puzzles. Not like there needs to be puzzles, but I feel like I wonder if a part of that is because if you want the combat to feel like a puzzle, that's how I approached almost every, especially like midpoint to the end of the game. Like I approached combat like a puzzle. Like I was obsessed with, is there a way I can break everyone's lock on this turn? Because I'm convinced there are definitely turns where you cannot break every lock.
No,
100%.
There are definitely pauses where that's not possible.
Yeah. So like I would be constantly like trying to min max. Like, all right, whose lock do I need to break? And like, how can I configure my party to do that? And being able to swap the characters out like per turn on the fly. Like it's just that whole element to the combat layered over like having the timer over their head so you know when they're going to attack next, and layered over like typical like elemental resistance, weakness, like all that stuff weaving into each other. I think for me, and then the active elements like Super Mario RPG, like timing your commands and your blocks and stuff, I think that kept, because I did read some reviews and like see some people saying that like for them the combat over time got stale. I personally never felt that, only because I treated it like a puzzle. Like that's how it felt to me. It just felt very like I'll lay in bed and play fucking Picross on my Switch. You know what I mean? Like to me, it felt like each battle was a mini puzzle box. And if it was like random encounters, I don't think that would have worked for me. I would have been like, another fucking battle. I got to do this again. But every battle felt very intentional. The leveling in the game is very intentional. Like you're really supposed to be on this coasting ride of, you'll maybe get a little overpowered, or you maybe be a little underpowered, but the game usually balances itself out. And if you wanted to add in that extra challenge or extra easiness, if you were having a tough time, all those relics make that possible to help you with timing, make you stronger, weaker, all these different things that can alter the gameplay. So if you wanted to fucking crank it up and test to see how good you are, you can do those things. But I don't know, the combat in this game is so strong for me personally. Like, is such a great, like, I'm also been on and off playing Octopath Traveler 2 all year, and I love the combat in that game as well. But like, I don't know, something about this combat, just it is exactly what I want. Like the fact that I'm getting this, and then in like a whatever month I get to play Mario RPG again, I'm a very happy boy.
Yeah. I also really enjoyed combat. I love all the timing elements. I like that just about everything has a timing element to it.
I loved finding out
the ultimate attacks.
I loved trying to find out like ones that didn't seem like
obvious.
I love that.
What's like the healing ones? How I still can't get Beast's volleyball spike one down. I've gotten it like a couple times, and I haven't been able to get it.
Like Sarai's portal dagger, I forget what it's called.
Phase shift.
Phase shift is like probably my favorite regular move in the game.
Oh,
phase shift is
Venom,
so good. Yeah, Venom spray
Venom
or whatever.
daggers or something.
Yeah,
where she hops in and out.
That
and
throws
Moonerang daggers. Yeah.
Sign me up. Like that's like what are we doing right now? What are we doing?
No,
this is so
super
good.
jump challenge again.
Yes.
Yeah, they're cool. I just wish that there were more. Like, because there's definitely points where I was just like, okay, because I'm not like, there are definitely situations where like Crescent Arc was used, like, you know, I wanted to use that. But like I tried out Lunar Shield when I first got it, and then like I never used it again for the rest of the game.
Oh, I used it like every boss fight. Yeah.
I never felt needed to use it.
So what I was getting to,
that's like a great way to like almost fully negate a certain boss attack. Like if there's a situation where I knew I couldn't break a lock, and I'm like, well, I know what I can do right now to stop that is this, and then I get to reset, and oh my god, so good.
So
yeah, I really didn't use it. So like really with Valir, all I did was Moonerang over and over again, and I was just like,
so good.
It feels good, but I'm just like, but I still want to do other stuff. Like I want to do other stuff, like especially when like
didn't want to.
When it comes to because I didn't think that it was like I didn't think it was optimal. Like I just didn't, you know what I mean? So I just
her and Zale needed one more
or two more, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, because at least with like, for Zale, at least with Zale, it was nice because like I think that he had a lot more utility in his abilities. Because like with healing, you can heal. That's awesome. With Dash Strike, you hit everyone. Like you hit everything, and then
you can hit everything with Moonerang. No. You can also heal with the Solar Shield.
Yeah, but first off, Moonerang, you have to get. You know, you have to continuously get the timing down. Dash Strike, it just happens. You just do it, and then you get the sword raise, and then that's it.
There are a couple times where you're positioned weirdly for Moonerang.
Oh my god, that drove me nuts.
It's part of the challenge. I
kind of like it.
It's part of the challenge.
No. It's not a challenge. It's just stupid. It's just like,
it's fine.
All right,
like you're a Zale main, so you took the training wheels, and us Valir mains, you know, we're doing the thing.
It's nothing about being. It's nothing about being a main. But it happened the most with Valir, like where I'm just like there's definitely ways that they could have just moved the sprite where she was standing instead of moving to the side. Because the same thing with like when Sarai used the portal, there are times where like I couldn't see her because she's above the screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
the timing.
You just gotta feel it, man.
I could do it with my eyes closed.
Visually, like what about for visual?
It's a timing thing.
People?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, listen. Yes, sure. And there are relics that help you do that if you are visually impaired or have other, if you're not skilled or whatever it may be that's affecting you. There are ways that they do, you know, accessibility.
I'm just saying that there's still they still easily could have moved where Sarai's second portal was.
I think it's by design. I think they want to make it more challenging. I think that's what it is.
What's challenging about it?
Because it's not in a straight line, so you have to then adjust to the timing of where it comes from. Because if it's just in a straight line, it's going to always be the same time. If it's changed, it's about the time. It's not about like
and that's
anything else.
Okay. If we're doing it, hold on. If we're going off that argument with the time thing, what about when you like? Okay, the amount of times where there's like 4 people in front of me, right? Yeah. I choose the person on the left, and you would think, like common sense, it would go across the line.
I think it's just a challenge thing. I think that's all it is. I think it's meant.
I didn't like it. Like it's not even that it was like
it's
a
fine
challenge.
if you don't like it, but I think that's why.
No, it was
why
just like it was just like OCD brain, where I'm just like, no, go in fucking order like a normal human being.
Yes, because normal human beings can shoot lunar boomerangs and balance them.
Oh my god. Okay.
So. With Moonerang specifically, it wasn't so much that she would jump into a different position. It was the different timings between the like different distances of the enemies that were there. Yeah. And whenever like there's this like weird like complex like line of them, I'd just be like, fuck man, this is gonna be like I need to hit 6 of these with lunar energy to like break these locks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's like these two
good.
are close.
That
and like
hit-
this
that
third
hits-
guy's over
No.
there.
That
it's
hits
game
for me.
time. I need to score here.
Absolutely, no, I did not like that. And then again, like it would just be like, okay, we're gonna choose the first person, and then we're gonna skip the second person and go to the third person, and then the fourth person, and then the second person. I'm like, why that order doesn't need to happen. Just do it in order.
It's
We
for
should ask
challenge.
the devs why.
But it's not it's not a good challenge. Like,
I enjoyed it. Lucas, did that? Were you a fan of this or not a fan of that? I personally did enjoy that. I thought that was a way to make a move that you've done over and over again for 10 hours more challenging later in the game.
It's funny because like I don't remember having an issue at all with like the order of it.
Oh,
but I think I just sort of learned because it doesn't follow like what you would say is like a logical order, but it does have an order. Like the order doesn't change.
Yeah, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it might not be. It could be like back row, front row. It could be side or side, but like it.
It's the same
loop of 4 each time. So really, it's you figuring out.
It's the same move of 4, but sometimes the like.
Well, I know what you're saying.
It may go like 1, 3, 2, 4, but it's always going to be 1, 3, 2, 4.
The way you want it ordered, it's just not ordered that way, and I totally get why that's frustrating.
It just kind of was like a fact of the matter for me. So it was like, okay, that's how it's going to be. And then when it was like the thing where it's like, here's one guy who's like way too close to you, and then one over there.
Yeah, so it's like a super quick press. That's
all. So I always had to sit there like, all right, I gotta like kind of picture this first, and I liked that. It was nice because otherwise it's too easy.
Exactly. I think it was meant to add challenge. I think that's what the point of it was. And I personally did enjoy it,
especially because like if you didn't have any problems whatsoever, like those two moves, like the one Villiers does and then the combo one, that would just like
so boring.
That would be just the game would be too easy.
So getting back to what I was originally thinking of, bosses in general towards the end of the game kind of fall under the same like pattern for me. It is struggle to survive for like the first 6 or 7 turns and figure out what they're doing. And then once I've stabilized with like with combo points, and I can like heal my entire party if something goes wrong, then I'm just kind of I'm going in a loop myself. I'm doing normal attacks until I need to solve a lock, which I have the combo points to successfully take down the lock, hopefully, and then keep healing and then wait for an ultimate. And then start that loop over and over again until the boss is dead. Like even the final bosses were like that for me. Mm-hmm. The optional bosses were like that for me.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead. Oh no, I was just gonna say, like all of them ended up being that same like the hardest part of those fights were the first like 5 to 10 turns, and then once I had enough combo points to stabilize, then I was just playing a waiting game and knocking out some HP each turn. I think the boss that I had the most trouble with in maybe the entire game was the giant robot face that would like pull different vials and stuff out of the floors, and like some are healing, some are like
to get beast. That was a tough boss fight.
Yeah. And that's because they are healing. They are doing AoE attacks on you, and it's more randomized than any other boss has been and will be after that.
That was the only boss that killed
reactive.
me.
Yeah. It's like do I want this dude to heal, or can I take a few hits, or like what is the best case scenario from like these 4 jars of goo that he's going to spray?
Yeah, that was the first time a boss killed me, because the first time that it used whichever vial like hit the entire party with like purple smoke.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was going to happen, and I was
same.
I was rolling the dice with my party's health, and then that happened, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to break that lock every time. That lock cannot go off. You were going to say something, Cam?
Yeah, I think that was the best boss fight, and I didn't do the true ending boss fight, but I do think that was the best boss fight in the game. And I like not because we'll talk about the first ending later, but I think that boss fight in particularly was incredibly easy. Like one of the easiest final boss fights in a turn-based like RPG I've ever played.
I mean, this may shock you, but the true ending boss fight is easier. It's longer, but it's easier.
Wow.
I think.
And I think that I think outside of that one, I think because I never died in the game, but I think the one you
should boot it up and die once just to get the game over screen.
Oh, maybe.
Did anyone else die in the game?
No.
Oh, you should get the game over screen. It's I don't know. It's definitely a specific Final Fantasy death screen. It's pretty cool.
Oh, I'm like, is it a messenger reference?
No, and maybe this is multiple Final Fantasies, but I feel like it's a specific one. Maybe 7, original 7. It's like says game over, black screen, and then the party's in the right corner, and there's like a light shining on them. I'm assuming that's a reference to a game.
Earthbound.
I don't know.
Kind of sounds like Earthbound, yeah.
Maybe it's that. It definitely felt like a reference to another game specifically. I forgot to cut off. I'm sorry.
Earthbound.
No, you're okay. But I think probably the most challenging fight was, I'd probably say the Dweller of the octopus one, like this the underwater one.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. That one was probably the one I like. I don't think it was particularly. I don't want to say it was hard, but I think that was the one where I was really fighting back and forth about just surviving. It was just able to do and also it was the first boss fight that literally just took a party member away from you, and you had to kind of just deal with that, because when you do the final boss in the first ending, she puts a barrier over them, and you have to destroy the lock to free them, or it'll basically crush them. But that was fine to me, because I was like, oh, okay, I can just get. But yeah, and I think that one was probably the one that, and it might be because I played it last night. It's pretty fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But another one that was also really I think was it was a cool boss fight at first, but then it's outstayed its welcome, was the Scythe dude near the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because he just lived for way too long, because he basically cloned himself 2 times, and then they do 2 or 3 different attacks, and it was just that's all it was the entire game. And I'm just I need this boss fight to end, because you're literally doing very the same few things over and over again, and it just was a very kind of boring boss fight in that for that sense. I liked the design of the guy, but it just was really it just outstayed its welcome. I was like, okay, cool, let's move on to the next thing. But I still think in general, there were creative boss fights. It was a good time.
I think one of the things that keeps combat really interesting and fresh throughout the game is, can you count on your hand how many times they reuse assets for enemies? There are, you go to different areas, there are different enemies, they act different, they have different strategies to use against them, different locks that you need to break.
Yeah.
The only one I can think of is maybe the boulder douche. I've seen a couple of times.
Oh, the boulder DJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the blue one, there was the red one.
Yeah, there's really not a lot of use. Again, I do, by design, it's very intentional combat scenarios. I think the only time they reuse something in a bigger way is one of the post-game boss fights. I think Rashawn actually makes a comment about it.
Yeah. Some of the boss fights they do, but I just mean regular enemies.
Yeah, regular enemies, not as frequently. I will say, as far as boss design and cool fights and fun time, I think 2 of the post game fights are 2 of the best fights in the game. I loved fighting in Beast Arena.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
The both the pirate ship crab and the I don't know, wrestler or whatever that guy was supposed to be.
Yeah.
They were a fun time. And then
the champion.
Everything about Sarai's quest except for going through the Cerulean Expanse is so good. Like just the name of the quest, the queen that once was or whatever, is just a cool fucking name. And then the sequence of going up there, and the rest of the party pops out and they're like, oh, there's no one up here, and Sarai's like, no, they're right here, and she kicks the fucking like mound of metal, and then it just turns into this giant robot hand with a gun, and it's fucking gun it's hand. So good.
Yeah,
like that's the shit that I'm just gobbling up. Like, yes, I need, like, it's so gorgeously animated. Just give me more of these like sicko freaks I need to take down.
Yeah.
Every time Sarai does something, it's kind of awesome.
Sarai's amazing. Sarai's probably behind Garl. It's probably Sarai. Like, I love Sarai. I think Sarai is super interesting when you meet them, like in the pirate situation, because like from the get go, I was like, characters, like, there's something up with Sarai or Captain Cliche.
You meet a captain, and you meet some other ninja who looks exactly like her.
Yeah,
same mask and everything. You're like, I think I see what's happening here, and it's exactly.
I completely did not realize it. I completely didn't realize it until. Yeah, I feel really stupid too. I was like, "Oh shit, okay."
The same exact face.
Yeah.
I did not add 2 + 2 together. I really didn't.
And then you get the second Sarai reveal when she's a fucking android, and it's like I like Sarai's character. I like Sarai's world. Like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more in there, just because it was like very empty. But
in general, I wish there was more world for both worlds.
Yeah,
like both of them seem small.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
I thought the main world was fine, but I thought
you go to a lot of places and you see a lot of things, but like when you narrow it down, or like when you actually just like zoom out, it's 5 islands and like a couple smaller things that are there.
Yeah, but
it doesn't feel like as vast as a world.
Yeah, but they put the effort into each of those areas.
Yeah.
And like just the vast variety of locations that you go to is just really impressive for a game like it.
And like I won't say too much about the messenger, but like when you start, basically, like, it starts getting real more referential once you knock on the door and you get sent to Glacial Peak. Like, Glacial Peak, on Mesa Island, Cloud Kingdom, they're all in some way or another, without getting too specific, they're all messenger things. And like,
Cloud Kingdom is too cool.
Yeah, it's fucking real good.
That's awesome. I wanted to see more of what was going on up there, because you just saw a bunch of feet.
Yeah, and I love the giants. That,
it's
like,
great.
When you the fucking scene, like, first of all, like, everything up there is so good. Like, it's just feet. Like, the one in the middle where, like, you walk through and, like, he picks one foot up, and then, like, you walk through and picks the other foot up. Just stupid little detail that was super cool. Is that Yeet or is that Kukar? Which giant is the travel giant up there? I forget which name is up there. I think Yeet is one of the first ones.
Kukar was the mouth. Kukar was the
mouth, and I forget what the other giant is. But like, when that thing kicks you, fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I think it's Zeedle or something like that.
All right, let's fire it up.
When you go to like the fucking council of giants, and like, you're just up there, like, that whole scene is so good for me. I love that. Like,
there's like mumbling to each other. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, yeah, we'll see. We'll let it play out. We'll see what happens. Like, it's so good.
Well, also, they look like they were drawn on the cover of a comic book. Yeah. Like, you can't see the top half of them, but they just look very, very stylized, like Marvel gods.
Mm-hmm. It's real good. Like, I'm a big fan. But like, so all that stuff is also hitting on the back end, because it's like messenger, like, stuff from the past. Like, you can kind of see certain things from, the future of that world being the messenger. I will say, so obviously another big moment happens shortly after that. You cross the Sea of Stars, which is like
incredible, just jaw dropping.
My only gripe with that thing is that I wish anytime you went back and forth, you could choose
They
to
showed
watch
it
that
again.
Like,
Yes.
I don't need to see it every time, but there was like, I was like, I kind of want to see it again. Like, because
Yes,
the first time you see
100%.
it, it feels real cool and like different and like, whoa, what the fuck? And it's like not disappointing, but I'm like, oh man, I wasn't recording that. So like, I can't see it again unless I play the game again.
Yeah.
New Game
Agreed.
Plus, baby.
New Girl Plus.
New Girl
Part
Plus.
where you're like sailing and collecting the stars, all I could think of was Mario's time machine.
Oh, that's something that that Lucas and Cam don't know. So when you start the post game and you go to what you do eventually is resurrect Garl, when you do that, when you complete that, an achievement pops that's called New Garl Plus, and I don't know, it's just stupid and it made me laugh.
Yeah,
It's
that's really good.
That's really good.
yeah.
I guess we should talk about this since you just said it.
Mm-hmm.
But we love Garl. Garl is a king. We want nothing but the best for this good boy. And Sabotage Studio has the audacity to bury this guy 6 feet under,
Mm-hmm.
and then make his friends go on living without him.
Make us go on a world without Garl.
Yeah.
It's like another 10 hours of a world without Garl.
Didn't they almost name Mirtha after him?
Yes.
Yeah, they wanted
Like,
to
what's
name
a good name
the
for
town
this town?
Carl.
Garl. Like, why? You know, he's kind of like our leader.
You know what else makes Garl so good? Is his name. Like, I don't know why it just feels like
He's a good Carl.
Yeah, like
It's comforting. It's a comforting
it's
name.
really like it like hits in the chest when you say Garl. Like you feel it coming out. It's like that's my guy. Like Garl is the guy that like it's Thanksgiving break in everyone's at the local fucking hometown bar and like Garl's the only person you actually are like fuck yeah, Garl's here. Like that's who Garl is.
Yeah.
Also, Garl's driving us home, which is
Exactly.
also great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like we're going at this in a very disjointed way,
Yeah.
but there's a pivotal point where you meet up with the Fleshmancer. You're going to. Do you fight anything there?
So you are fighting the first dweller, and Sarai and Garl
Sarai's
obvioly
world.
can't. No, you're still in. It's like maybe right before Clock Tower or after.
It's after Clock Tower.
Yeah, so you are fighting the dweller.
The giant eyeball.
Rashawn's like,
Right,
I cannot
right.
get involved. Sarai
Yes.
and Garl are like, we can't fight this thing. So you're just fighting
Right.
with them two. And Sarai's like, you need to do something. I can't. If you're not going to, then I will. Grabs his
grabs his
necklace
thing,
and
yeah.
throws it. Which again,
That happens after the tower falls, though. You fight him twice.
yeah. But it's all the same sequence, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens right after, yeah.
But Rashawn does that on purpose. Like Rashawn knows he needs to have Sarai get involved without him being the one that does it because he knows what it's gonna cause, and this is the setup to he orchestrated Garl's death. I still love Rashawn, but he knew that was gonna happen in some form. He needed it to happen. He needed someone to get the Fleshmancer to show up. Like that's what needed to happen.
And the Fleshmancer just ices him.
It's a real good scene. Like I like their conversation back and forth. Like when he is very clearly going to kill Garl and he snaps his fingers and like everything stops and they have their conversation. I'm like, this is a lot of really great like giving me a reason to care more about all of these characters like in different ways because we get the scenes with the acolytes, which again like sort of whatever, like cool design, but they're not doing a whole lot. We're getting more from Arlene and Brugaves. This is when we see them depart from the story until the end. And then for Lucas and Cam, who have not with their eyeballs seeing the end. When you do the true ending, one of the final scenes you get is who Brugaves is in the messenger, standing in that world, and because the first ending you fight Erlina, and then Aforel comes and kills Erlina, and then that's the end of Erlina.
And then he's like, "See ya. I guess you guys won. Have fun dealing with the things that I've kind of been holding on."
Yeah, and then the second ending, everything starts to play out the same way, but you have Garl, because Garl's alive now. Same conversations happening. Aforel's about to jump out of the way and bring Erlina into the mix. Garl steps forward and is like, "You're not gonna get away. Like you're gonna fucking." He says it better than what I'm saying. He's like, "You're not gonna get away. Like you need to, whatever, blah blah blah. Do this yourself this time." And he throws an apple at his head.
Syrup.
Yeah, you get a Fleshman syrup. Throws an apple at his head. Turns around and he's like, "You know, you really want to test this a second time? There's no time hijinks to save you. Blah blah blah. Let's go." And then you fight Aforel instead of Erlina. So with all that happening, Erlina is then not dead. So in some way or another exists until the messenger time. And one of the final scenes you get is Brugaves staring off into the distance and Erlina walking up behind him. In their other forms, because Brugaves is a changed character. Erlina is also what she is there. So
I guess we should also get into their choice and what actually happens with them in them turning on the Solstice Warriors. I don't know if we touched on like Erlina decides to become a lieutenant of the Fleshmancer, as long as Brugaves can forget everything happened, live a free life,
and never have to fight Solstice Warriors again.
Yeah, and so that is why she ends up, I mean, essentially being the final boss, because she is the only thing that's left of those two characters, at least in this existence. Brugaves being led off after his promises being fulfilled. I think the Fleshmancer says that, like, yeah, he'll forget everything, and he's going to be like the fastest man alive.
Something like that, yeah.
Something along those lines.
Which does play a factor in things.
The way that he says it, you know that it's definitely like a monkey paw situation.
Yeah.
That, yes, he is going to forget. Yes, he's not going to have to fight Solstice Warriors, but he's not going to be himself.
And he's also not going to be free.
No.
And it's the other thing that I noticed about that whole thing too, when I was watching Cam get to the end of the game last night, I forget the character in the last area, like the Fleshmancer's like fucking stronghold. The character that's like that summons that boss right beforehand with the
Soul Curator.
The Soul Curator. So when you defeat that first boss there, and the Soul Curator brings out their thing, and it's like, okay, says something like, "This is why I said to you, Cam, did you catch that? Because I did not put two and two together the first time." She says, like, "You're going to have a hard time dealing with the fastest, blah, blah, blah." And then Sarai stabs him. So seemingly you would have potentially fought Brugaves again, or fought him there. But Sarai getting involved stops that from happening, which leads to Brugaves being and doing what he does in the messenger.
So is the idea with that is like that Aforel didn't technically lie to Brugaves because someone else brings him into the fight to fight Solstice Warriors? Is that what that's supposed to be? Like, if he were to hypothetically,
unless it's just it's a potential, this could have been that, but it wasn't. It also again could just be like, it's technically not
Like a genie's wish type
yeah.
bullshit, like
But
the vernacular that you're using.
Yeah, but I also kind of want to say, like, there's nothing really stopping the Fleshmancer from just being the bad guy. I mean, like, I don't care what I fucking told you. I'm the bad guy.
There are
that's the vibe I got. He's just like,
there's one specific rule. It's you cannot be directly
involved.
So the Aferel and Rashawn, old friends, old alchemists who basically became immortal and started playing around with different aspects of mortality and magic and all these things and became these incredibly powerful beings. Aferel wanted to kind of fuck around with necromancy and kind of like the gross side of, like, the visually gross side of magic. Everything that you see that the Solstice warriors are fighting against. And Rashawn wants to do cool things like turn himself into a bird.
Yes.
And they are at odds with each other. Rashawn wants Aferel to cool it with conquering worlds. He thinks it's bad because it is. But they both come to such a point in power that I don't think they can actually like physically fight or put their full strength against each other without probably multiversal implications. It seems like that a lot of this is implied because basically what they say is they can't interject with each other's like toilings. Like they can't Rashawn can't actually come in and slap Aferel and be like, stop making these monstrosities, stop taking over worlds. And Aferel can't do that to Rashawn. So they are puppet masters. They're fighting proxy wars.
Yeah.
Essentially. I'm trying to think of where I was going with this, but I think that was a setup that needed to be told for people who might not be familiar with the battle of these two gods, essentially.
Yeah. And I will say, if you're listening to this and like haven't or maybe won't personally get to the true ending or do that stuff, I will say that like there is a decent amount of quests that you, depending on what you haven't done during the game, you may have to do towards the end. I do personally like think it's worth it. Like I think especially if you like the party and you like Garl, I think there's obviously great Garl moments. We didn't really touch on after you resurrect Garl, you do a short little dungeon to meet Chef Bass, who I think is a fucking badass character.
Oh, Chef Bass is great.
He smokes fucking bubbles out of an anchor pipe. Like he's a fucking he's my boy. But then you get like a cute scene of like, and like cute not in like it's a whatever. It's like it's a good scene, I think, where they're having dinner and like everyone's dressed up. Like I think it's cool to get to see like this party that I do like get to have this like non-ridiculous, non-combat, fighting sky demons, like having a dinner, enjoying each other's company, and what Garl refers to as a reverse funeral, which I think is just like, it's just a good moment. And I think if you don't want to play it, I'm sure someone will have it up on YouTube at some point. At least watch it, because I think it is worth experiencing. I think it's a good time. The other thing I guess I'll throw out there is that some of the implications of like so in The Messenger, one of the prophecies of Sea of Stars is that the world is going to flood, which is why Kukar is holding Mesa Island up under the water, so that way some body of land on that planet will survive the flood, which does happen in The Messenger. You're playing this game on Mesa Island. Part of what, there's a point later in the game where you will now know that you're dealing with Zale and Valir, but in a very indirect way. And one of the things that they say in their dialogue, because I've watched this scene like fucking 4 times on YouTube now, because I'm like, the music's really good, and it's just like, I don't know, I cry at dumb shit. But one of the things, listen, Garl's death had me fucked up. Garl's resurrection had me fucked up.
Yeah.
One of the other things that changes with the true ending is some of the cutscenes in between the credits. One of those things is, when Elder Teeks is talking to the children about like the solstice, the legend of the solstice wars or whatever, one of the things Teeks says is, it's they usually visit once a time. It's rumored they visit on the warrior cook's birthday or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's a fun rumor, blah, 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 all this stuff, whatever. But then when you get the true ending, when Zale and Valir are going to leave to go fight the World Eater, and then the credits are going to roll, one of the things Garl says, he like interjects them from like whatever speech they're giving about needing to save the world and all this stuff. And he's like, stop being so dramatic. He's like, we know you got to do your stuff, but just make sure you always come back. Just always visit me on my birthday in Mooncradle or whatever. So like, I don't know, just a weird like, yeah, the rumor is they always come, and then it's like, oh, hey, visit me on my birthday, basically. Come back, this is come back and chill.
Thing. Yeah.
And then, that happens in the first credit scene. There's no Garl because Garl is dead. Yeah. Teeks walks in and talks to Artie, which we never even fucking talked about Artie. Shout out to Artie. He's a frog robot.
It has 5 10-year-old children.
Yes.
Inside its brain.
They have a very sad
circumstance.
Existence.
Was weird. Yeah. Very morbid.
Yes.
I also kind of like the Watchmaker, where it's like, listen, I just want to make my shit. I don't care if it's used for whatever. I just want to make my shit.
They brought us wheels. What more can we ask for?
You only interact with them the one time, right?
If you
time,
if you do side quests.
Oh.
You never played Wheels, so you missed the whole.
Are you a Wheels champ?
I did not play
amazing. Did you like Wheels, Lucas? John and I are big fans of Wheels.
It was a little too much for me.
Okay.
To like, my brain doesn't sit still long enough.
Micro RPG Yahtzee slot machines.
Yeah. It was fun.
Which is everything that I love.
Yeah, it's a good time. I will say, and I did put this in my review too. It's like, I appreciate that. When the game introduces Wheels to you for the first time at Brisk, it does not make you play it. I think that is like something more games should do.
Yeah.
If people want to do it, great. If you don't want to do it now, great. If you don't want to do it at all, I think you're wrong, but also great.
But you should play Wheels.
Yeah, you should at least mess around a little bit. It's a fun time. Where was I? I don't remember. I said too many things. I jumped around like 7 times. That final scene, Teeks talking to Artie, no Garl, obviously, blah, blah, blah. In the true ending, Garl is there. Elder Garl, my boy's got a nice gray beard. He's looking good.
Old man.
Not going to lie. He's talking a little bit about stuff. He's helping construct a shrine for the Solstice Warriors. Then Teeks is like, hey, you're going to be late if you don't leave now. Fucking Garl hops on, what is the dragon's name?
Wentworth.
Wentworth.
Yeah.
It's funny because
Butler shit.
I didn't realize this reference until much later, but when he is naming the dragon, I think at one point he's like throwing names out and he says Manfred, and then he's like, no, not that, and then like names a Wentworth or whatever. Manfred is the name of one of the dragons in the Messenger. I just thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's good.
So you get on the dragon, go back to Mooncradle. You're back in the starting, literally your hideout as a kid. That's where Garl is. He's cooking up a fucking birthday stew. Zale and Valir walk in, and he's just like,
looking like they're 18 again.
Yeah, and he's just like, you're gonna just stand there, and they run up and hug him. Screen fades to monochrome or whatever, and the end. Oh man,
this is Finn. Yeah,
so good.
So I need to go. I need you to rewind it back a little bit. Uh-huh. There's actually like 2 things I want to talk about that we have.
There's so many things we've.
I know. The problem is, like, listen, I'm happy to talk all night, but we're an hour and a half in. It is late. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So
Sure. I want to mention. I want to go back. Did you say that in the messenger you fight Zale and Valir?
No.
No.
There is.
I was like, what?
I mean, if it's up to really John. Do you want me to tell you?
It's fine.
You want me to say it or no?
Fine.
Okay.
I'll allow it. To those listening, I started the messenger maybe 2 hours ago.
I would say it's not that big of a messenger spoiler. It's just more of a cool connection between the two games.
Sure. Yeah. No. And that's why I'm playing the messenger.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the dots that are connected. I wanted to play the sequel to Sea of Stars.
Hell yeah.
Immediately. Which is the messenger.
So the end area, the shrine that they build for the Solstice Warriors, in part of that sequence, Teeks specifically says, like, or Artie's like, hey, what do you think of the window? Like, blah, blah. She's like, perfect. It's large, blah, blah, blah. Because the world's going to flood eventually. So they want to make sure that they can see in there. The world does flood.
World's going to flood?
Where have you been? Yes. The part of the prophecy of the game is that their world is still doomed because it's going to flood at some point. So, like, there are other issues but
not doomed because of a intergalactic necromancer.
I completely must have, like...
Giant centipede.
I don't think it's made a big plot point. I think it is just referenced. It might even only be referenced in Teeks' stuff in her grimoire or whatever.
Oh, sure.
That might be the only place, because I listened to all Teeks stories.
I also did not remember that.
Yeah,
but they do say that, like, hey, we wanted to make sure these windows were thick because of in case it floods.
Exactly. So the flood has always been an oncoming thing. That's why Kukar, again, holding up Mesa Island, but the crypt is not on Mesa Island. It is on Mirth. So, yes, the rest of the world floods. Later in the game in Messenger, you will get to the Sunken Temple, I think? Or, no, the Sunken Shrine. Whole area. Then you'll eventually get these two things that I now know that it is Zale's solar symbol and it's Valir's lunar symbol. Cool. You collect both of those, you bring them to the shrine, you open the door, you walk inside. You don't know it back in 2018, but you know it now. That is their shrine where they're, like, being paid respect to in Mirth. So you go to the crypt in the Messenger.
Hey, quick question. Can I visit your gravestone in the Messenger?
I wish. That would be amazing. Listen, Sabotage, if you're listening to this, spend more money and time than you should updating the Messenger to add
there's
specifically
only
just
400,000 names to put in there.
I know. So you go there, you activate the shrine, and Zale and Valir use their last bit of energy to speak with you. But again, they're just spirits, so you don't meet Zale and Valir. They don't call themselves Zale and Valir. So in the Messenger time in 2018, you just think this is like, whatever. It's part of the world, part of the story. But now you see the connection there, and so bringing up this conversation is important because I think it implies a lot of, like, what might happen future games that are going to take place in this universe, or maybe how did Brugaves and Erlina get this far, or whatever it may be. But they talk about the flood. Long ago, this world flooded. The people of this time lost faith in us, and the world was doomed. Long since then has their connection to the stars, like, existed. So to me, that's them saying, like, this world, you cannot come in and out of the Sea of Stars anymore. You cannot go to other universes. This is your own doom now. Like, you are stuck in this world. But I think, and then, like, they give you something that helps you in the quest in the Messenger, which is something I won't talk about now. But I think it's just a cool connection, whether it does, like, connect into bigger things in the future or not, or if it's just, like, a really cool, neat way they wrote something into the Messenger and they wanted to make sure it had, like, a strong connection at some point that Messenger fans would enjoy. But, like, I have been thinking about the shrine a lot, wondering if there are more implications to those two things specifically, because, again, like, I don't know how much of Sea of Stars was, like, in their head when they were making the Messenger, or if they just took the things they were doing in the Messenger and were like, let's try to make cool tie-ins to make this like a fleshed out thing. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe they had the idea, who knows? But it's it's interesting. I think it's a really cool way of like, hey, these games are connected, but I really do. I mean, and I think the three of you are perfect examples of you've all relatively enjoyed the game without having played the Messenger. So I think they succeeded in making like a very standalone thing while also like a sicko like me who's like, oh my God, they're playing fucking Autumn Hills again. And it's just a little like, I don't know, it's dumb shit. I will say though, the song that plays in the Messenger when you go to the shrine is called A Hero's Gift.
Oh,
so
that's cool.
I don't know, interesting.
Yeah,
it's just weird, interesting things.
Is it S apostrophe or apostrophe S?
I'll tell you right now because I was listening to it today, so it's open on my phone.
So I haven't played the Messenger, but you did show me that part on YouTube, and it was really neat. And I think it's a really good.
It's apostrophe S.
It's a really well thought out.
Thank you.
Connection. Like I think they could have easily done like what comes to mind is like the Thing remake / prequel that came out where it was like, oh look, we explained how the axe got in the wall and stupid shit like that. So instead of like reverse engineering stuff, they kind of like took pieces and connected them in what seems like pretty substantial ways, even if they're small.
Yeah, they're really good at pulling plot threads, even within its own game. They're really good at taking things that make sense, like the whole Garl resurrection scene all takes place in that time when Rashawn stopped time right before Garl was shot with like the death ray. And they snatch his time frozen body and take him to safety, and Beast, who's this gaseous
life
soul
form
entity, it's something that's made out of living glass that can take any shape and can survive as long as Beast has the will to survive, the will to live, the will to...
He's got the Randy Savage elbow drop.
He does.
And you do have to fight a wrestler at some point to finish his loyalty quest. That wrestler characters must be like a reference, like a Canadian wrestler or something. It's got to be.
And not that I know of. I'll have to look again.
I cut you off though. I'm sorry.
No, but it's fine. But I think they're really good at having everything. Not everything, but like most things have a place in the story or like a reason to be there. Whether it is, Brenden, you mean Cam talked about this last night, but like Beast being created into their current form is the last thing that Rashawn was struggling to crack as an alchemist, which was living glass, which was the catalyst for allowing Garl to survive, because Beast could take any form, and he took Garl's form, and was also like the reason why Rashawn like left the party and left his puppet there. Was that like it was going to get too down and dirty for him, because he knew that it was heading towards a direct conflict with the Fleshmancer. Eventually.
I do want to say, and I'm gonna have to play a New Game Plus at some point, or watch somebody doing a playthrough, because I need to see if this scene is the same when it initially happens and when the resurrection happens. Because in the resurrection scene, since I have now watched it 4 times to help everyone else see it, when that begins and April like walks to the right and is talking, Rashawn like looks back and then looks back at him to see if that happens in the resurrection scene. I'm very curious, because the camera does pan the same way. I'm curious if he also looks back then, or like how the time anchor really works. Not that it really matters. Time stuff always gets messy
Yeah.
at points.
There were multiple times today when I was thinking about that scene too much, and I'm like, it doesn't work. And then I'm like, oh, but it works. And I'm like, it doesn't work. Like, how can this be the same beast? And how does Garl know that he has been dead and now he's resurrected and instantly knows that he was like in the great beyond, but he can't talk about it. But also they snatched the previous living Garl who hadn't experienced any of that at all, and brought him forward in time, essentially.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of, like, again, it could just be this is what it is and deal with it. But like when you bring Garl out of the portal, he like collapses and like, I don't know, it kind of looks like maybe his consciences are like connecting because he's like, he is struggling because he didn't die. You know what I mean? Like he just came through a portal. They've gone through plenty of portals. So
his essence is reconnecting to his body.
Yeah. So maybe that's it.
And downloading. Yeah.
Without, again, saying too much about the messenger does deal with time stuff as well as other things as well.
Listen, you collect a lot of time shards, which they
Rashawn
are specifically pointing out in that scene that Rashawn freezes time.
Yes, and he created the time shards.
Yeah.
So I am curious, if the next game in this universe is going to be in between these two games, where maybe it's like you're seeing, because now I have a feeling, the more I continue to think about it, that like, again, the prophecy is this world is doomed. Rashawn leaves at the end of the true ending with a portal. You don't know where Rashawn goes or what Rashawn does, or what the two of them do in general. So I'm wondering if he cares to maybe try to help save that world because those warriors helped him finally do what he was been trying to do for millennia. So I'm wondering if he leaves them time crystals to be able to like navigate a flooded world or whatever things he sets up. Because the other thing I'm thinking too is like, if Aforol, when he sends off Brugaves, doesn't send Brugaves into the future, he just sends him somewhere else or in the same time period, I wonder if Brugaves and Arlena get access to a time crystal, and that's how they are in the world of the messenger. I don't know.
So I have a quick question, and we talked about it last night.
The flimsy hammers.
Helpful for people, not flimsy hammers. And I guess I want Lucas's insight on this as well. But when you first meet Rashawn, you get to the door. I mean, you've had this character as a narrator a few times throughout the story, and he's recalling like people coming up to the door, and he just doesn't do anything. Now, my question is he running on time loops of this specific world? Or is it 2,000 years worth of Solstice Warriors? Like, yes, he's I know he's doing that no matter what, but is he running through the same timeline over and over and over again and trying to get a different outcome, slightly changing some variables? Because like once I know we've talked about like Garl being the thing that makes him like answer the door, but even when he's sitting there, he's like, maybe this is the time that I do nudge them because nothing else has worked. Is it he is specifically working over the same timeline over and over, or is it one continuous timeline that he's tried Solstice Warriors over and over and over again?
So if I remember right, part of the setup was like Fleshmancer's about to just like wipe out the world or whatever, and that's when Rashawn like basically creates a multiverse. Doesn't it say like he splits the world into however many? So my thought is like, especially since part of the story is you going to a different world where things don't work out. My guess is that we're talking about events on different worlds, because they seem to imply that they're like able to move pretty freely.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't mention like having duplicates of themselves or anything like that.
No, I think they're the only versions of themselves between worlds, except for Roshan's puppets.
Unless they were doing that though, and like clearly, Fleshmancer found a thing that worked. He covered the sun and buried the moon in Sarai's world, and that's why he's setting up shop there because he's like, cool. No Solstice Warriors can come here. Like they can't do anything if they come here. So
this is worst case scenario for the world.
Yeah,
like this is where I thrive.
And maybe Rashawn can actually get more involved than he claims he can, but he doesn't want the Fleshmancer to know he's in that world. So maybe he is doing a time loop there to try to get the right configuration.
Yeah,
because I think he does say he can't get involved because he doesn't want the Fleshmancer to know where he is.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
It could be.
Also, is Rashawn's study or like his alchemy lab, is that even physically on that world, or
That's
is
a good
it
question.
something outside of time? Because playing the messenger for a couple of hours earlier, when you do go into like the shopkeeper area. My theory is Rashawn is the shopkeeper because a lot of the stuff in there just seems very Rashawn-y. You're going into like that same portal door. And he specifically says that he is sitting at the end of time. And like, is that what Rashawn is doing when you knock on the door? You're knocking on the door of the end of time, and he's just like exhausted all of his options. He's trying subtle variations here and there.
I don't hate it. I mean, that's another reason why I like this game so much is because it kind of is like there's a lot to think about, a lot to infer, a lot to kind of, there are clear things that they're doing, and then there are things that like, I don't know, maybe that's what we're doing. Maybe you'll find out. Maybe you'll never find out, but you're going to keep talking about it, or you're not going to talk about it. Like, it is what it is. But I do think that there's probably a little bit more to Rashawn that we'll find out in...
I mean, you're just going to message the creator after this and be like, yo, is Rashawn the shopkeeper from the messenger?
I mean, I'm sorry.
And I want to know the answer.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, T-Rap. I might. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely stuff that they probably wouldn't answer. There's also still things hidden in Sea of Stars that the people who have played it so far haven't found. So there are
no idea.
There are 4 items, or at least that so far that I've seen that we've known of, called flimsy hammers, where if you do specific things in the game, you get awarded a flimsy hammer. Nobody knows what they do.
And they like you get them when you finish actually like
main things.
Main things. Yeah. So like I got my first one when I challenged everybody at the wheels tables for the championship games, and then went and faced the watchmaker in wheels and beat them, and they just give you a flimsy hammer, and I'm like, okay. So I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, so I have 3, and there's someone else in the Sabotage Press Discord that has 4. Yeah. So, but we've discussed it in there. People have talked about it, and we can't figure out what it is. We've tried to pool our knowledge, and
Have you tried going back to Rashawn's room?
Me and fucking John talked about that today. I haven't done it yet, but I have not gone there. So it could be there. One of the other things you can do late game is, John and I also talked about this.
Yeah.
Moraine, you can go into Headmaster Moraine's like office back in Mooncradle.
Oh yeah,
and there is a stone tablet there that is in a
different language.
A different language in the game.
That smarter people than I can translate. Probably it seems very translatable.
What about Gerard the Constructionist?
I don't think that's it. I was
making a joke.
Yeah.
I was making a joke.
Okay.
But like,
Gerard,
hammers. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's like the eggs and Banjo-Kazooie all over again.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I hope there's something there. I hope it's not just like everyone scratching their heads.
It's the fucking Korok seeds.
If there was one, and it's
poop.
just like silly gag, cool, but like 4 at least.
I've had a friend talk with someone on the team, and they gave that person a hint, and they don't know what to use that hint for.
You need to get that hint
and
out of them.
I know they didn't message me back. I asked specifically, I'm like, what's the hint? And so it seems like there is something.
Yeah. They also in the Discord, one of the developers did mention like that it's not just nothing, but they would not answer the question. So
got it. I like that. I like that a lot.
I hope it ends up being something cool. Like even if it's just like, not story altering or character altering, but just like a cool thing. I think that is like a cool little, just a neat little thing tucked away in there.
It's like the Demon Souls store all over again.
But yeah, I mean, we are at almost 2 hours. We've, I think, again, I'll talk about Gar all night. We haven't talked about Gar in like 30 minutes.
There was one thing I didn't get to talk about still. I'm like, I still am not like, we already, this is something that I know me and you did. I don't know if Carson was there for it, but I still don't really, I wasn't fully like, I didn't fully buy or, not buy, but I didn't find, I wasn't a big fan of the kind of like justification stuff with Brugaves and Erlina. Like I didn't like watching the backstory stuff. I'm just like, y'all just kind of came to this. I don't know. It's just like it felt like a conclusion that didn't have anything. It just happened. It's just like, oh, we don't like. There was no like sort of like event or something that like led to them thinking like, oh, this isn't worth it, blah 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 blah, like and
wasn't like when the Dweller murked like all the other rest of the Solstice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely part of
the previous
it, yeah.
headmaster and
like all of the other Solstice warriors.
But like it's also the idea of just like, okay, we keep like Solstice warriors keep dying because of this dude. Let's work for this dude instead. And it's just like, but like, what? Why? Like,
so I think for that it was more so they are caught in this tradition, and they are well established in that tradition, and they have these children that are following in their footsteps. That really they're trying to change things for them.
Yeah.
And I guess for Brugaves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like Erlina wants to break the cycle for Brugaves, and Brugaves feels very connected to Zaylan Valir and wants to break the cycle for them. Mm-hmm. Again, they're probably doing it in the wrong way, but that's what they're trying to do.
Obviously, yeah.
It's the same as like when Morim just is like, I quit. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Their motivations are not absolute. Like they are not. Their will, like they cannot be like beasts. They cannot be living metal or living glass.
They're like, we're fighting a losing battle, and we're forcing children to, jump in front of it, and we're just sick of it.
But isn't it still like weird? That's like, hey, we're going to, instead of fighting a good most likely losing by fighting a good fight that can like save an entire, save a world, at least temporarily, right? Because of the whole flood thing. We're just gonna be like, we're gonna work with the bad guy to like potentially make his plan go faster.
I mean, the other thing, it's just the other thing too. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
And I just think that like, I just think that like, but I do. It's weird because like the stuff with the Brugaves and Erlina, especially Brugaves, because it's just like, guys, you gotta understand. But like, he never like actually says what he wants to like say. But like, also, I liked how this was like, I think one of the instances where I really liked Zaylan Valir, where they're just like, where they showed their like resolve. They showed like that they aren't going to listen to any sort of bullshit coming out of their mouths.
Yeah.
And so it's really just kind of like a mixed bag where it's just like, I don't like how they executed these characters to get to this point, because it doesn't make sense, because it's just like, we're gonna have these characters more or less turn bad to enhance the like this threat's plan that you were literally trained to try and stop.
Yeah.
But then also, like, it does kind of characterize Zale and Valir a bit more, which they are pretty wooden characters.
I think also, though, like, there are breadcrumbs of, again, aside from like all the other Solstice Warriors are dead, old Headmaster's dead, they do see in certain scenes in the beginning seemingly try to like kind of stand up for themselves or speak up to Headmaster Moraine, and he's just very, we're not talking about this, we're not doing this, you're not doing this in front of Zale and Valir, you're not going to fill their head with any sort of like questioning of what we do. Like, this is the whatever you want to call it, like, it's, you know, got like notes of religion, or like not culty, but like it's like this is what
their way.
Do.
It's their way. It's their way. Yeah.
So, and they're faced with, like, you know, again, for still choosing the wrong way to go about it. It seems like they sort of feel like they have no other option but to. It's like, either we're gonna die fighting a dweller, or we're going to defect and like meet with. And it seems like they had multiple meetings with the acolytes. It wasn't just like, all right, we're gonna flip. It was like, we want this, and there is a point later in the game where it definitely seems like Arlena specifically is like, I don't want to corrupt Brewgraves. I would like Brewgraves to like go be able to get this piece that we're trying to broker. But also Arlena makes comments about wanting to be the most powerful. So it seems like she at some point definitely got corrupted with like, I don't care what I am, I just want to be the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
So I think that like it's like a bunch of little things kind of feeding into like, they just maybe not necessarily feel helpless. They're just they're choosing to resolve their problems the wrong way. And I think that's part of, again, why Headmaster Moraine realizes in that moment, like, oh, I also pushed them in that direction. Like, that's why I am done with this academy. I pushed them to do that. And I can't do that again to Zale and Valir.
There's also this interesting factor where those two give up on their beliefs when they're fighting against like basically mini bosses to the mastermind of everything. Like, the dwellers aren't like, they are world-ending threats, but they aren't the Fleshmancer. And like, they're giving up at that point. They see that that all is lost with only 4 Solstice Warriors, and if they're pulling themselves out of it, there's no chance. Like, Zale and Valir are not going to be able to finish the job, even taking down the remaining dwellers. And I could see how they could think things are futile at that point. And that's like, Moraine also just drops like immediately. He retires.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just going to go chill in these hot springs for a while.
And with Brewgrave specifically, like, I don't even think, like, it's not anything about he doesn't want to fight Solstice Warriors anymore. He doesn't want to fight Zale and Valir. He does not. He in his world, in his perfect world, he would also save them. He would like pull them with him, thinking that he's getting sent to fucking Happy Time, and he's not getting sent to Happy Time.
This is his way of saving them, though.
Yeah,
He's saving them from this life of futility, of spending their days practicing kung fu and sewing, and fighting this evil that they cannot beat. And so he, like, they make that deal to free the future Solstice Warriors, or at least the two that they know, to go live normal lives and not have to deal with that bullshit, because they aren't able to finish the job and actually dispel the evil. Like, they just want them to do what they want, instead of what's expected of them from Prophecy and the world.
Yeah.
And Moraine, and they are buying Zale and Valyr's freedom. Like, that is their main motivation, because it's too late for them.
They're trying to defy their own fate, but in the wrong way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Zale and Valyr are, and Garl at the same time too, are all confident that they can do it, and like confident that they like their end goal at the time is to take out a Dweller.
Yeah, and
that is an impossible task. Like, there are so many impossible tasks that this group takes down, and it's really getting like Sarai on board and getting Rashawn on board, who is this deity. Like, that's really the turning point. That's why the game really got interesting for me when Rashawn joined, because he was someone who could tip the scales.
Yeah.
Even though he's not going to. Or he says that he's not going to actually tip the scales. But he is a character that you see the conflict from a different perspective. You see the through line of how to take down the Fleshmancer, as opposed to just taking down a Dweller, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's good.
So off of that, there's one question I had. So with resurrecting Garl, I'm kind of of two minds about it.
Mm-hmm.
For one, I think when Garl does take that lethal hit, and then gets his sort of borrowed time.
Oh man, we never even talked about that. The borrowed time flask shit is so good.
It's a 30 to 40 hour game. Like, there's so much stuff that happens.
But basically, he's like, it's cool. Like you were saying earlier, John, with like him taking responsibility for it. He's like, I get it. Like, I'm about to bite the dust. Let me help one more time. And I think that's like the most compelling part of the game, is like when you're basically helping Garl do his like last act as a So when I first found out that like you resurrect him, I was kind of like disappointed in a way.
Yeah,
I was like, well, that really feels like it kind of cheapens all that stuff a little bit. But then the way the story ends for Valyr and, oh my god,
Zale.
Zale, thank you.
I always forget Zale's name too.
Yeah. It's a very like anime kind of thing where the heroes end up like sort of also abandoning like their humanity in the way that the villain does, but to like right the universe or whatever. And like that trope often like is impactful for me, but in some ways kind of like, man, I wish like the heroes could like actually enjoy the fruits of what they did. So like Garl being resurrected and then being able to like come back and visit him instead of just being space cops for all eternity. I like that part. Like, that part to me is very satisfying. So I'm kind of like
it meant something that Garl died. That Garl took his last precious moments that he could be spending with his friends and baking a giant loaf of bread in a volcano.
So cool.
It's really good. Like, that whole sequence is amazing. Just to get permission to cross the Sea of Stars. And when the review guide went out for this, there's a section in there that says specifically, like, hey, these are major spoilers we want you to avoid. This happens sometimes in review guides, and it's more guide, like, you could say fuck it, like, I'll talk about whatever I want. But there are things sometimes where they're like, hey, if you could avoid it, that'd be great. Like, it's something that it's best to remain unspoiled.
Yeah.
And one of them is one of the bullet points is any deaths / resurrections. And I'm like, once Garl was dying, and I'm like, God damn it. Like they do not bring him back. Don't do that. That's gonna be it's not gonna turn out well.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna feel cheap. But I think, like I was talking about earlier, Sabotage is really good at pulling plot threads and like placing those little nuggets of knowledge throughout the game, like Rashawn talking to Aferel about not being able to create living glass, or when Rashawn, a lot of this is about Rashawn because he's kind of a key player in all this. But when Rashawn freezes time, he does it specifically at that point where it's perfect to swap out Beast for Garl. And also at that point, they're talking about Aferel's looking at the time shards, and he's like, "Wow, like these are cool. Can I take one? I probably can't take one with me, but you were always the better artist." And it's really like Rashawn's attention to detail in things, and like really placing things at specific points in time to make all of this happen to kind of steamroll to the true ending.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been happy with Garl's resurrection if it wasn't specifically that scenario of them not rezzing him essentially, but picking him out of time at the perfect point. I think is a better choice than, hey, we got our one wish from this deity. It's to bring our friend back.
Yeah.
And then we're going to live happily ever after. It is a specifically tailored plot point that I think works out really well.
Yeah, and I think like
Oh,
go ahead.
I just think that like I was also, I had a feeling, I just had this gut feeling because a lot of JRPGs aren't willing to kill off characters, which I want so much more. Like, please kill off your party members. I love that shit. But even when like they do it, I'm like, they're probably gonna bring them back in some way, like some way. So I kind of part of me was surprised, but part of me also wasn't. And I think that I think that this was the right choice because one, when it came to the final boss fight in the true ending, what caused you to fight Aferel? Garl was the one that like said something, right? Like Garl is always the reason of something that isn't supposed to happen.
He's the unexpected thing that no one is expecting.
He's the unexpected variable. He's the unexpected variable. Which is kind of what you've said outside of this podcast, Brenden, is that like it's a chess game.
Yeah.
And Garl is like this unknown board piece that isn't supposed to be a part of the game, but it's
fucking Nerf gun that's shooting pieces from the side.
Just with apples.
And also on top of that, which what you guys were like telling me is that you have to. You don't have to particularly 100% the game, but they make it so that the side stuff that you do, most of it is you are being rewarded for it in an in-game way, and not in just an in-game way, but in a way that affects the story directly. And like it's just really cool that it's just, hey, once you finish these things, you may not, you won't know it unless you like look it up, but like once you complete those things, you get Garl back. And that's like a really, really rewarding thing that I just haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is this weird, like, again, it's not going to hit for everyone. It's going to not work for a lot of people probably. But like, for me, the act of going through and doing these, the conch one, collectathon is not like the best thing.
I wish they would go to like 40 or something for that. Like bring down the.
Thankfully, I was collecting most of them as I played, so like it wasn't like I had to get 60. I had to get I think like 15, which is still not great, but like I did it.
Manageable.
But I will say like there is definitely something to be said about like if part of the story was Garl resurrecting, I don't know if it hits the same. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. We don't live in that timeline. But having to go and do these specific quests after to like basic like the quest you do for Sarai is essentially for her. It is like she wants this thing resolved for her people in Rapine.
It's a loyalty quest.
Exactly.
In Mass Effect.
Yeah. And like it's the same
that's
thing
what
with,
all of these are.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Beast. Like Beast is like he just really wants to fight in the arena, become the champion, and like test his mettle. Like he wants to do that, and like that. I mean, on the outside, if you don't care about Beast, you don't know Beast personally. Like, okay, fucking beat this fucking god in fucking space. Go to the arena and fight a crab. What are you talking about, Beast? But like, it feels good to like do these things for those characters, and then part of that reward, aside from final boss, different ending, all this stuff, is like, okay, you have proved you are worthy of getting your friend back and like doing this thing. And kind of like, I didn't even think of it that way. I think it was Lucas was saying like, in these types of endings, like these characters become like sort of Superman, God, whatever, and like lose their humanity in a lot of ways and just become sort of like cogs of the machine of like keeping peace or whatever it may be. And getting Garl back is like them getting like one day out of the year, they get their humanity back. To like, we're going to go to fucking Moon Cradle. We're going to sit in our hideout. We're going to have a home cooked meal. Like, we're going to sit with our friend. I think there's like definitely something that, like, I think there's a lot of things that kind of justify, because again, like, I think it is very easy to kill a character and bring them back in some way. And a lot of times it's probably, cool, whatever.
Unearned.
Like it doesn't feel earned. I feel like for the characters it feels earned, and I feel like for doing the act of playing it, because I do like there will be people out there who finish the game, maybe they don't know there's a second ending, maybe they never look it up, and like maybe it's someday they're like, oh, let me do these other quests, I'm like feeling to play a turn-based RPG, I like Sea of Stars, whatever, and then they fucking do that, and then that's what they discover. Like I feel like that is a cool experience to have. Like I feel like that would be like, you finish Sea of Stars, you pick it up in 6 months, you're like, oh, I kind of want to like 100% this game or something. And like, that's what you discover. Like that nugget of information has been hidden from you for 6 months or a year or whatever. And like, you come back to this game and you come back to fucking Garl. I don't know. It's like, if the story was different, if the characters were written differently, if you didn't care about Garl as much, I feel like, whatever, but it really is, that, and I do think a lot of it is, again, like John was saying, like Rashawn is like playing this back end you don't see chess game that he is doing things, and it's even a scenario where I don't know if the whole plan is always Garl needs to die for this to happen, or Garl needs to die for the heroes to meet their resolve or whatever, because I think even A4L's caught off guard that Rashawn has figured out how to stop time. So like, it was like, all right, got to do it. Like, this is what has to happen next. Like, I don't know all the pieces, like, because he's definitely sort of figuring things out as the story goes too. Like, there will be certain things that get said or happen where it'll just be like his face cut in with like, his eyebrow raised and just like dot. What? He's like, oh, okay, maybe this will happen next. Or
and it's usually like things about like living glass,
exactly,
or different little prophecies, or like, what the fuck did you just say, Garl?
Yeah.
Sorry to interject, but
no,
also with resurrecting Garl, I think one of the reasons why it hits so well for me, just talking about it, I realized it, is Garl spends that entire game doing stuff for you.
Yes.
He is there to help you. He is your wingman. He is your boy. He's ride or die. And then he dies for you. And when you are surprised by Rashawn's plan, which only Beast and Rashawn know, and Garl, I guess, to a certain extent, Garl comes back And you have done these loyalty quests for everyone else in your party.
That Garl would have done.
Actually,
Garl would have done those.
Really quick. Yeah. Let's go over Garl knowing that. Like, when does that happen?
So when he was dead, he talks about being let in on information that he cannot talk about.
So when he was dead,
and he's been watching since,
like, spoke to him basically,
or something beyond.
Yeah.
In general, they don't go into it.
Yeah, he's not allowed to talk about it.
It's very hand wavy. It's which is also like my qualm with how does he know what happened if he's still the Garl from before he died, and he's brought through the portal, and he's not the one who had gone through the whole quest of baking the bread and all that. Anyways, but when you resurrect Garl, you get to do something for him. You get to what does he want to do? He wants to have dinner with his friends. He wants to throw a party at this fancy restaurant. The only way to do that is to take him fishing, and get a pass from Chef Bass. Is that his name?
Yeah,
again?
Chef Bass.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but like, it is this very heartfelt quest where you are finally paying it back.
Yeah.
You have brought him back. It wasn't you. It wasn't your decision to bring him back. But you have brought him back to life. You have made him exist again, and you are doing something special for him. And Garl deserves a fancy dinner with all of his friends.
Hell yeah, he does.
Especially when he's resurrected. And he makes the best of it. It's such a great moment. He toasts everybody, like literally everybody that's there. Says something special about them and is just having a great time.
It is a good time.
And then he goes on to land the final blow on the Fleshmancer before he kicks his ass into a portal. Garl's so good.
Garl's the main character.
Garl is the main character. It wouldn't. I do like that they don't bring him back before the first ending. I think that feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the way it's structured, like
that's the thing. Like before we recorded, Cam and I were talking to Moises in a Discord call because Moises had just finished the first ending, and he was feeling. He had mixed feelings about the first ending, which I can understand. It does feel kind of abrupt, and if you stop there, like,
and then it turns into a shooter.
It does turn into a shooter,
which I didn't realize until
it turns into a shooter twice.
Twice.
The new rule of video games: you gotta have the shmup sequence.
Since Bayonetta.
Yep.
It's a really good game.
It's great.
Oh, wait,
I
thought you were on something, Brenden.
No, I mean, listen, again, I will gladly talk all night. I don't want to do that to the rest of you.
I thought you were talking about Moises still, so I was just
I mean, I just like Moises. I think it just felt, abrupt. Still sorting out his feelings on how he feel about how that ending is. I told him that he should experience the second ending himself without me telling him that. I was like, I'll gladly show you the first portion of that if you don't want to do the loyalty quests. But he was like, no, I do want to do it. I'm like, all right, then you should experience that. I think it is worth seeing.
And similarly to what you were saying about like Garl like coming through the portal and he somehow like knows everything. Again, it's kind of similar to like how the game builds up to the first ending, where it makes it like it very much makes you feel like, oh, Erlena's gonna be the big bad at the end, like the final boss, and then she is. But then, like, if you do the true ending, that isn't the case. So, like, just say, like, hypothetically, right? Like, do you have to do the first ending to be able to do the true ending, or can you just go straight?
You do.
Okay.
Because credits roll, and then they show that stone.
Oh, it shows it light
thing.
up after. It shows it light up after. Yeah, you're right.
You should check out this.
Because like that would have been weird, right? If you could like technically like do that stuff and not realize that is actually the true path or whatever.
I think you can probably complete everything, so that way it's just like
but you can't activate the chronophage, right? Is that what they call the chronophage?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, because that would have been weird. But it yeah, I again, like I ultimately like don't have like a whole lot, like very minor gripes with this game. I still think, like, based off what we know about Rashawn, I think his plan was a bad plan until everything happened.
Until Garl.
Until Garl.
Yeah.
Like, I get, like, not trying to get involved, but also just like, this hasn't been working for thousands of years. Like, you got at that point, I feel like you guys should think of another idea. Yeah, and again, like the small things I've said about the combat, and but yeah, it's a fantastic game, and I think that, like, it definitely makes me want to play the Messenger soon, because I have yet to play the Messenger.
It's so good.
And I am actually excited to learn about the shopkeep thing. I really hope you get an answer from that in the Messenger.
I mean, if I get that answer, I am not telling you until you finish the Messenger. So
okay.
Oh, you're blackmailing me?
No, I just. Well, I mean, I can tell you. I feel like
you're ransoming me.
Well, I feel like the Messenger has a lot
of stuff.
Yeah, it has a lot of its own stuff. It has a lot of, like, things you don't expect, a lot of twists. Like, there are a lot of things going on in that game. Like, and again, I'll say this, and then I won't talk about the Messenger anymore. Similarly to how you all feel about Sea of Stars, the Messenger is back heavy. You are going to play that game and think it is one thing, and then it is not going to be that thing you think it is.
It feels like that already.
Yeah. So it is definitely by design, the Messenger, supposed to feel like what you are feeling like it is, and then it is going to at some point not feel like that anymore.
Okay, cool.
And when I think if you don't know that twist, which it seems like John doesn't, at least, I think it's cool to stay in the dark about that and enjoy it for yourself.
I'm sure I listened to that Giant Bomb Game of the Year discussion at some point, but it is washed right out of my brain.
So I have, like, the weirdest experience with the Messenger. So played the Messenger for the first time, 2018, PAX East. I think it was 2018. I think that's the first time they showed it. I think they showed it at PAX South, PAX East, and then it came out.
Same year.
Yeah. So I had the chance to play it at PAX East. I had the chance to play it with Thierry, the creator, the game director. We were playing it. Like, that game floored me from the get-go. I played that game, and my initial thought, like, and I said it to him, I was like, this makes me feel like the first time I played Shovel Knight. Like, this is what this game is doing for me. And we had a really good conversation, and it turned into, he's like, listen, I can show you some stuff that is not part of this demo, but, like, it is going to spoil things for you. And I'm like, no, you can show me whatever you want. Like, let's do this. So I like to see a lot of, like, the stuff that happens later and, like, certain things. And I'm like, it only just, like, elevated it. I was like, no. Like, this is a day one, immediately going to play every bit of this game. It's, oh man, Messenger's good. I might, I'm gonna play it again.
I mean, it's shorter than Sea of Stars.
It is shorter. It is shorter by like half. So even shorter if you don't want 100% it. So
Christ.
Yeah.
My final thought is that Rashawn is really just decrypting a battle lock throughout the game. He's seeing he's seeing the icons that he needs to hit.
Yes.
On the Fleshmancer, and he's doing that with the party members that he's got.
Yep.
It's how story feeds into the combat and vice versa.
Yeah. He needed living glass like attack, and he didn't have it, so he couldn't break the final lock.
Yeah, and time and twins and
Oh yeah, one last thing I wanted to mention, because I did mention to you last night. Like, and again, I love Best Beast as a character.
Yeah.
It still like puts a bad taste in my mouth that he's really just there more or less to do the true ending stuff.
Yeah, with that revelation, Cam was expressing that it's too convenient. And it sorry, Cam, go ahead.
No. It's just Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure his loyalty mission is great, and it like builds onto his character. Like, I'm saying he's a good character. I'm just saying when it comes to the A plot of what's happening, that is like all he really provides, and that just like that feels bad to me. That feels bad to me. It's like almost like feels like no, I'm not gonna say it's a comparison like that, but it's just like I wish that there was more, because I did really like him, and I wish that he did have more a thing to the main plot.
Yeah. I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it's we discussed this as well. That he suffers from being introduced within like 5 hours of the ending.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you could do within that time frame.
Yeah.
And finding an important place for him or an interesting story beat is it's a tight time window, especially when you are facing down the destroyer of everything.
Yeah.
So
I think I mean I like the character too, and I do.
So pretty.
Yeah.
Every animation of Beast
oh my god,
is
so good.
Oh, my favorite is when
he's
shimmying. He's a crab.
Yeah.
It's
all
good.
Are so good when you're in the water and he's like a bottle, like a
Yeah.
Coke bottle.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I think he's like a Coke bottle
That's
or something,
awesome.
or like that shaped like glass bottle.
Yeah,
it's good. I like it's the thing of like Sarai and Beast both come from this other world that has tried and failed, and like we get more of Sarai because Sarai's quest is like the only way we can potentially ever change things back is to get Solstice Warriors here, and that's never going to happen. And Beast has already failed. He's dead. So like, you know, the mystery of their past is the most you get, which I don't hate, but I can understand why like you'd want more of that character. I will say I wouldn't be surprised if we do maybe get DLC at some point to like maybe expound upon certain stories, because you know, very easy for them to be like, here's a side story on maybe the beginning of Sarai's world or a portion of Sarai's world, and maybe that's accessed by time anchors. You know what I mean? Maybe you are hopping around through different failed points or something.
Or we don't have Zale and Valir, and here's the rest of the cast, and you go on an adventure with the good characters.
I mean, I really hope that, because of like I need to be what Jesse is for Turgle, for Garl.
Yeah.
And like let's make this a thing, because if we just get like DLC that's like Garl's fantasy life or something, and it's just like a whole game of like us without Zale and Valir in that world, and we're like fucking like, you know, I don't know.
What if it's Garl Du Valley?
It could be.
And you're just doing a little farming sim on Mirth.
Gardu Valley. Gardu Valley also sounds like a really bad porn parody or something. But
Garl's gonna fuck so much in the future. He's just been standing for his friends for 20 years or whatever.
My final thought on the game, or I guess Lucas, do you have any final thoughts on the game?
I'm glad I asked that question, because I think you guys had really interesting things to say about that. And it I think has given me a renewed motivation to actually go and see that stuff for myself once there are rainbow guides.
Rainbow guides, yeah. If you follow a guide, it'll be much quicker. Because I mean, John had like 15, and him and I banged it out in Discord together probably like an hour.
Banged it so hard. And you can, for those listening, if you haven't figured this out, you can, once you get a specific relic, you get a parrot on your ship. It has nothing to do with you going to the parrot or anything, but if you go to your map, you can have the parrot ping an island or whatever landmass that you want, and it'll let you know if there's any treasure or conches. And is there something else too? I feel like there's 3 things.
If there is a third thing, I must have already completed it all before I used the parrot.
But it'll tell you which of those items that you're missing, and then where on that island you're missing it from.
Yeah,
so like
it'll
the specific,
point you in,
like jungle path or glacial peaks or moon cradle. I keep on saying Moonglade because I played too much World of Warcraft in my day.
And I'll also throw a hint out there if there are no guides yet and you're looking for rainbow conches.
Go to Brisk.
Go to Brisk, and do not forget that you have a wind push ability, especially for earlier island ones that you didn't have that ability. Because there were so many times I was scratching my head like, where the fuck is this conch? And then I'm like, oh, I can move this block now. I couldn't do that before.
Yeah.
So yeah. My final thought is Teeks might be my third favorite character.
We didn't even bring up Teeks.
And the biggest crime of this game is that Teeks isn't a full. Well, it just isn't a full party member.
That would be cool. But
I would have loved if Teeks was like either like a very support heavy skilled character, or if like they could summon things out of the grimoire that they have like a tale about, and it's like, okay, I can do like silly skills or something. Yeah,
that would have been creative.
Yeah,
I kind of wish that Teeks was the one that was doing the like investigating of the enemies that you were fighting and telling you their HP and their weaknesses and stuff.
Yeah, that would be good. Great character still. Like I think brings a lot of levity and comedy to certain scenes, and like
from minute one.
Yeah. Great. Like when you first meet and they're like popping around and like 8 windows pop up with text. I'm like, this is my girl right here. Damn, maybe Elder Teeks and Elder Garl. Maybe.
Hey, I mean they could be together.
You never know.
There was actually a point in the story where I thought that Teeks might have was going to like do some sort of like double crossing or something, because there was a point where I forgot, I think it might have been the sky base or the construct or the catalyst, where she was just like, I want to stay here and look into this, and really nothing came of that.
Yeah,
so I was just like, oh shit, is she gonna like do some sort of double cross or something? But didn't happen.
No,
so
just very interested in everything.
Yep.
I think if we don't cut it, we're gonna just keep bringing up things that we love.
No, I think we pretty much.
So
I think we pretty much covered everything.
I don't know. We didn't talk about the arc, about Artie.
We didn't talk about
that
Artie
much.
I mean, Artie's great, but like similarly to Beasted, like they're like just introduced very late.
There's a castle that's time locked, and there's 10-year-olds who have been there for hundreds of years who look old, and if they step outside the boundaries of this castle, they will just disintegrate.
Disintegrate, from age.
So they get the idea from Sarai's world to transfer their souls into a robot. Not just 5 robots, but 5 people in one robot, because that's better.
One frog robot.
Mm-hmm.
They just go into a tube, and then a robot comes out, and it's like, wait, did they just? Oh no.
Yep. They really could have just. Actually, no. They all had different knowledge specialties. They had to do it. It's the only way to do it, or I guess make 5 robots, which they didn't do.
The nice thing is they can survive outside the castle now.
Yes.
Because they're not biological beings anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Mm-hmm. It was fun. I liked it.
It was cool though that they kind of were just like, we're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
And also like one thing that like I wish that there was a little bit more. It didn't just kind of end. Was like Sarai was like, you made another catalyst, and then it was like, yeah, and then just like nothing came of that. Like I feel like she would have been like, yo, I'm destroying this thing after you're done using it. Just like literally something as simple as that, where she was just like, I'm destroying this thing. Yes. Like it's done.
It's fucked up.
Garl says it best at Garl dinner, by the way. When he's like toasting everyone individually, he says whatever he says about Sarai, and he ends with like the coolest person I know, because Sarai is the fucking coolest person in that game.
She is so rad.
Yeah.
When she like does the giant portal to bring the
good.
Oh, that was so sick.
I do want to know more of the lore of Sarai's world and why she can only conjure portals. Like I am curious about that specific.
I do want to know.
Yeah, they never explained how she can use the portal, right?
How she gets out there. I mean, it's technology. Is the hand waving?
Oh yeah,
part.
there is this technology.
Yeah.
But also, how did she get over?
Well, they mentioned it when they were talking to the council. She rode the Sea of Stars before.
Oh, okay.
They mention it because
Okay.
when they go up there, she's like, "Oh, you're good."
No, I thought that was the ghost pirate that said that they were good because they that is how they got caught in that alternate dimension with the sea monster and the Vespertine.
I think that might be true, but I'm pretty sure something with Sarai as well. Like they were like they said something along the lines of like you come from another world, you've done this before.
I think also the elder in Lake Dakaria also says something like that to Sarai too.
That's something about her identity.
Oh yes,
that was about her being a cyborg. Because I thought oh shit, is she a mermaid or is she a mer person?
I thought they were talking about her pretending to be this captain of this ship, even though she is
they were talking about
assassin,
her being a cyborg. Yeah,
and her crew's too dumb to know it.
Mm-hmm. I the fact that she's Captain Cliche and her crew is very tropey, stereotypical RPG characters. I really enjoyed. I thought cool.
I loved.
I hated that part so much.
I loved how no matter where they were in the inn playing
fucking breaking it down,
bringing joy.
No matter where they were, they were underwater. Playing a little bass, the upright bass.
If you
Shout out Sakinathan.
Yeah, if you never talk to them when they're on stage, they all stop and do a different animation, and it's all cool stuff. If you talk to Keenathan, has the octopus, right?
Yeah.
If you talk to Keenathan, the octopus does something funny and it's great. And then at the end, if you get Garl dinner, the octopus also gets a tuxedo. They all get to dress up fancy, and the octopus gets a goddamn tuxedo. Awesome. It's so good.
Incredible.
Yes,
that's great.
Yeah, I think we should.
Wrap it.
This is the
hit the old dusty trail. Hit the Sea of Stars.
Hit the Sea of
Stars. Ride the Sea of Stars out of here.
Well,
but
thank you.
Let's do it again until somebody knocks on the door.
Yes,
I think is the lesson that we've learned tonight.
First of all, thank you all so much for coming on. This was a great time. I'm sorry this took a long time. Next time we'll toss a time anchor down so we can come in and out without altering the rest of our lives. Plug whatever you'd like to plug. If you got stuff coming out, going on, things you want to talk about, the floor is yours. We'll just go in order. John, if you want to tell people where to do the
my main thing right now is the Indie Informer. You can follow it on Twitter at indie_informer. It should be a link to our website there. Also, patreon.com/ I think it's the Indie Informer. No spaces, just the Indie Informer. That's where my whole budget comes from for the Indie Informer. Everything that goes in there currently, monthly, is my budget to write articles, write news, write previews, write reviews. That's how I was able to do Sea of Stars. Also, Jill Grote, the editor-in-chief of the Indie Informer, is an incredible human being who has limitless energy, and I don't know how she keeps up the pace that she works at, but definitely go follow the Indie Informer. Go check out our content there, and I think that's really it. Otherwise, on Twitter, you can find me at John_Carson.
Hell yeah, do the things. Follow John, read John stuff, pay John money on Patreon, do all of these lovely things. Cam, what about you?
You can follow me on the socials at Cam Final Mix. I'm going to PAX West. I will have previews up on Digital Trends. I also do stuff with IGN and Game Informer, so you can check that out when those things go up. Just follow me on Twitter, and I always tweet when things go up. So, and
play Legend of Heroes.
Oh yeah, play the Legend of Heroes series. It's absolutely incredible. And oh yeah, I'm writing the Kingdom Hearts book coming out like 2025. Like, don't expect it anytime soon, but it's happening. So you can check that out. And Unlocking Kingdom Hearts podcast. It's kind of like think of a book club. So if you're new to the series, things like that, check it out. We got a great panel there. And yeah, that's everything.
Hell yeah. Lucas.
Yeah, I'm Hokutono Lucas on the socials. I also write a bunch of different places, but my main haunts seem to be shacknews.com and gamecrate.com lately. So you'll see most of my stuff there. And that's it for now.
Hell yeah. Well, like I said, thank you all so much for coming on. This has been a great time. It's been a pleasure. I'm so happy that we got to talk about this game because I've been waiting to talk about this game. You can follow us everywhere, Past Controller. All the stuff we do is at pastthecontroller.io. You can find me at BB Room or don't find me. I don't really care. But yeah, thank you so much. Be good. Follow these people, and we'll see you next time.